We are very excited to engage in an open and respectful dialogue with you as we work together to shape our nation's future. We want to start with a moment of unity and reverence for our country. Please join us as we stand and we sing together the Belizean National Anthem. O land of the free by the Caribbean Sea, our manhood we pledge to thy liberty. No tyrants shall linger, despots must flee this tranquil haven of democracy. The blood of our sires, which hallows the sun, brought freedom from slavery, oppressions run by the might of truth and the grace of God. No longer shall we be hewers of wood. Arise, ye sons of the Baymen's clan. Put on your armor, clear the land, drive back the tyrants, let despots flee. Land of the free by the Caribbean Sea. Nature has blessed thee with wealth untold, o'er mountains and valleys where prairies roll. Our fathers, the Baymen, valiant and bold, drove back the invader of this heritage home. From proud Rio Hondo to Osarsu, through coral isles over Blue Lagoon. Keep watch with the angels, the stars and moon, for freedom comes tomorrow's noon. Arise, ye sons of the Baymen's clan. Put on your armor, clear the land, drive back the tyrants, let despots flee. Land of the free by the Caribbean Sea. Please remain standing as I invite Mr. Grant Clements, Senior Justice of the Peace, to lead us in the Belizean National Prayer.
Almighty and eternal God, who through Jesus Christ has revealed your glory to all nations, please protect and preserve the Belize, our beloved country. God of might, wisdom and justice, please assist our Belizean government and people with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct their plans and endeavours so that with your help we may obtain our just objectives. With your guidance, may all our endeavours tend to peace, social justice, liberty, national happiness, increased industry, sobriety, and useful knowledge. We pray, O God of mercy, for all of us, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your most holy law, that we may be preserved in union and in that peace which the world itself cannot give. And after enjoying the blessings of this life, please admit us, dear Lord, to that eternal reward that you have prepared for those who love you. Amen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. At this juncture, I would like to acknowledge the presence of His Worship the Mayor, Alberto Wally Nunez, the Mayor of San Pedro Town, Honorable Minister Andra Perez, Minister of the Blue Economy, Civil Aviation, and Area Representative of Belize Rural South, and his wife, Mrs. Celia Perez, Chairman Anthony Shanona of the People's Constitution Commission, Vice Chairman Glenfield Dennison of the People's Constitution Commission, Zone Leader for the Belize District for the People's Constitution Commission, Commissioner Maria Zamane, Deputy Zone Leader for the Belize District for the People's Constitution Commission, Commissioner Cristina Romero, Deputy Mayor Ms. Jania Rivero Duarte, Councillors of the San Pedro Town Council, ladies and gentlemen, business owners, presidents of the various associations, educators, leaders of civil society, students, welcome. We would like to begin with the welcome address and officially begin the consultation by inviting Mayor Walberto Wally Nunez, the Mayor of San Pedro Town, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening. Thank you, Ministers of Ceremonies. I would like to begin this important exercise by acknowledging the presence of the Honorable Minister Andrew Perez, Minister of the Blue Economy, Civil Aviation, and the representative of the Israel South, and Mrs. Perez, Chairman Anthony Shanona of the People's Constitution Commission, Vice Chairman Glenfield Dennison of the People's Constitution Commission, Zone Leader for the Belize District for the People's Constitution Commission, Commissioner Maria Zamane, Deputy Zone Leader for the Belize District for the People's Constitution Commission, Commissioner Cristina Romero, Deputy Mayor Ms. Jania Duarte, Councillors of San Pedro Town Council, leaders and the entire San Pedro, for even the ones watching at home. I wish everyone a warm welcome to the Rafael and Nunez Auditorium at the San Pedro High School, a place of gathering and learning for many, especially for us this evening. To constitute means to form or to establish. Therefore, a constitution would be the establishment of a collection of basic rules that govern a country and its people. Another important function of the Constitution is that it sets certain rights and privileges that we guard as citizens. These are the very rules and rights that promote peace and preserve the freedoms we enjoy on a daily basis. We always hear the phrase, know your rights, and that is what we are here to do tonight. It is important that as a people, we are aware of the laws that govern us. In time, everything changes. Technology and science are ever evolving. Culture and peoples change. Nothing stays the same. Should our constitution stay the same? We should be careful that our core values are never tampered with. However, some things done in the past no longer have the same relevance. The language has changed, society has changed. The language used back then, when it comes to special needs, for example, is something that is no longer acceptable in today's society. Do we live in the past, or do we evolve in the rest of the world? Careful modernization is important. A country that depends on visitors from various nations should take a matter like this very seriously. The proper wording and inclusion of technological methods to further protect our laws is of the utmost importance. Before we proceed, the single most important duty as guardians of the Belizean Constitution is that we know it. We have to break it down into several chapters until we completely understand and digest it. I will thank the People's Constitution Commission and our speaker, Vicky Brownlee, for taking their time to bring this information session to our island residents. Bienvenidos and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wally Nunez, for your insight and for your contributions that have been invaluable to the success of this critical initiative tonight. I now invite Honorable Minister Andre Perez, Belize Rural South Area Representative, and the Minister in charge of the Blue Economy and Civil Aviation to participate in our discussion regarding the PCC's effort and the significance of these nationwide consultations. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Honorable Minister Andre Perez.
Good evening. I'd like to start off first. I know that the presentation before I've introduced all the important people here invited, but I still would like to acknowledge the chairman of the PCC, my good friend Mr. Anthony Chanon, and the rest of the fellow commissioners of PCC. I acknowledge, of course, His Worship the Mayor, my brother, Mayor Wally Nunez, and his council. I also acknowledge my wife, who's here with me, as well as the Association of JPs. I see as well Pastor Clive as well, Father Eduardo, thank you for being here, and members of the community. I really want to tell you thank you for being here. As well, thank you, Misters of Service, for introducing. That's a good introduction. Thank you. I'd like to start off first by saying, of course, good evening to one and all. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the People's Constitutional Commission Initiative. As the Mayor rightfully repeated, know your rights. While we say know your rights, it is always like, I know what's good for me, I know what I can say, I'm free to say, or whatever. But it's important that what we speak, it is important that we know what are our rights, and the rights of others as well. So, this is special to this town of San Pedro, and by extension, the entire island of Amborogiski. And for the PCC and everybody, it was long awaiting. So thank you very much for being here. So if I may say myself, the people of this island have historically been recognized as a community of the most embracing, respectful, and non-judgmental individuals in the Belize. At times, they even brand us as being very progressive, very open, very, we are very open-minded here. And that's one thing I can say about Amborogiski here. So as a society whose livelihood depends and thrives on its natural tendency to be hospitable and welcoming to all visitors, again to quote what the Mayor mentioned, local and international, that come here by water or sky, respect for all human rights is a given. It is ingrained in the culture of the people of San Pedro. So as we engage in this magnificent display of true democracy, set out in the mandate given to the People's Constitutional Commission to promulgate a new constitution for Belize, and propose amendments to the Belize Constitution, we are, without a doubt, participating in a formidable exercise of true democracy, led by the Belizean people, for the Belizean people. I have deliberately left out the main person who is our guest speaker, but I want to kind of tie it in together right here before I go in. Here I want to actually acknowledge what we should have done already to our guest speaker, none other than Mr. Richard P.K. Bradley. Welcome, sir. I deliberately do this because I want to start by saying, I love your shirt. I like your shirt. It gives me a memory, and I want to share a story to interpret here, to inject here. About democracy, about freedom, our peaceful country, independence since 1981. We boast and say that not a drop of blood was shed to obtain our independence. Over the last week or so, my wife and I were watching a program on Netflix, and it's important about history, world history. It is about the last Tsar. The country that used to be one time Russia, then became Soviet Union, and they went back to Russia, and what they are presently going through right now with the war. But I mention it because it's an important episode where you see a lot of bloodshed. Millions of people died. World War I, World War II, civil unrest, hundreds of thousands of people that brought down the monarchy. But the bloodshed cannot be, it's unimaginable. So while watching this program, I was thinking about this speech I was going to be giving and how fitting it is, how we compare. And as such, we as Belizeans, it's good to know our history, but also to embrace the freedom that we enjoy, democracy, respect for one another, that we live and speak and say whenever we feel like it and everything, because the Constitution protects us. So, Mr. Richard, if I didn't, the rest of my speech, I just want to acknowledge you here, because when I came, I caught up with a shirt there, no? But I like it. And so, indeed, one of the most thorough, historic, and powerful undertakings of our government, the People's United Party, in its unrelenting request to make Plan Belize a reality for our Belizeans, I want to thank you all, especially you, the people of San Pedro, who have come out here to participate in this Know Your Rights session. It is an opportunity for us to freely and openly express our concerns in a space that is safe and constructive. This is the place. This is the time. This process provides us a unique opportunity to reflect on how fortunate and privileged we are to still be living in a country, again, as I mentioned earlier, free speech and is protected, where access to social media is available to everyone, and where the press enjoys absolute freedom to present information as it so pleases to do. However, we are reminded regionally that many do not enjoy these same privileges as we do, as there is freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, all of these things that are threatened every day, some places even by death, as happened recently in the country of Ecuador, where a presidential candidate, while on campaign trail, was assassinated. Unheard of here. Our freedom of movement that we take for granted so often is truly a privilege that in many countries around us do not enjoy. Safety and security issues are always a top priority for them. In our country, our political leaders can walk our streets freely, and our people can have access to them easily, unlike in other countries where they are surrounded by bodyguards. It reminds me the last time when our PM was coming to San Pedro recently and decided to, for some reason, he got on an earlier flight without informing the entire team, including myself here. When I get a call from the CAPSEC and it says, listen, the Prime Minister's landed and no one is here to meet, I'm telling you, all hell broke loose. We found out that eventually we're panicking, where's the PM? He just landed here in San Pedro. We found out eventually the PM arrived in San Pedro, casually stepped out of one of the airlines here and jumped into a taxi and headed to the venue on his own. Only means. This is the safe haven that we can still boast of, and one that we must truly strive to preserve. This is why this session tonight is so important. Let us speak the facts. And let us do respectfully and constructively. Let us voice our problems, our concerns, but also let us provide tangible recommendations on how we can address these. Finding the balance is important. So, allow me to end up by saying this. Our rights are absolute, and they are sacred, but our rights end where the other person's right begins. We can't exercise our rights with the end of infringing on the rights of others. And we must never, never, ever forget that with rights comes responsibilities. Let's enjoy our freedom, but let's not forget to do so responsibly. Without a doubt, it's our fine balancing act. Doing unto others as we would have want them unto us. With that said, thank you very much. Welcome all, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Angela Perez. We enjoyed your stories, and absolutely we can recognize that what you have said is that our freedom, our rights are absolute, but with freedom comes great responsibilities, and that is why we have been invited here today to be part of the consultation. I am pleased to introduce the esteemed chairman of the People's Constitution Commission, Mr. Anthony Shannon, a well-respected resident of Belmopan, appointed by the Prime Minister John Briceño in 2022 to honorably serve as the chairman of the People's Constitution Commission. Mr. Shanona has extensive experience in management, making him capable of overseeing the Commission's 25 commissioners who represent 23 multi-sectoral entities throughout the lease. Mr. Shanola previously worked in the citrus industry and briefly served in public office as the first elected mayor of Belmopan and as an appointed senator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the People's Constitution Commission's chairman, Mr. Anthony Shanola.
Thank you, Mistress of Ceremonies. Good evening. Protocol having been established and time fleeting, I would like to recognize the head table and all distinguished members of our audience. Tonight's session really is about listening to the people. But I would just like to give a brief overview, if you allow me, on why we're here. Our country and we as a people are identified by this book. It's called the Belize Constitution. It's 163 pages. It's not easy to read and it's not easy to understand. And I will not stand here before you to tell you I am an expert in constitutional language. That's why we have Mr. Bradley here tonight. But what's important and what I want to plant in your minds is that the People's Commission, and you have all been given a little booklet to share with you the organizations and the faces and the persons. We took 7 months to understand a little bit about what is in this book. Having experts come, international and local, Isabella being one of them among others, to try to orientate ourselves on what we have. You shouldn't change what you have until you understand what you have. Tonight's series is part of what we call a public education outreach. Certainly we can go into some consultation, but before we can consult and ask you what you want to change, we would like to try to take an attempt over these next 5 months to present what is in this document. And we broke it into 5 pillars. For example, tonight's first session is your preamble, which is a bedrock of our identity as a people. Fundamental rights as one pillar. And then you have the legislature, which is the executive, the legislature, the Senate. And then you have the judiciary, which is a separate arm, the separation of power. Then you have the services, the public service, and how they administrate the power that is in the law. And then you have 4 branches. For example, the Auditor General, the Election and Boundaries Commission, and the Public Service Commission, the Legal and Services Commission. And there can be others that are not in there, like the Ombudsman and the Contractor General. So there are 5 pillars. Tonight's session is dealing with the preamble and your fundamental rights. So that is what we're doing. There will be other occasions for us to visit San Pedro, and quiero dar las gracias por todos ustedes que han llegado a esta presentación, a los que están en el internet. Ojalá que hoy en la noche puede entender un poquito más de este libro. One of the things that we tried to do with this 163-page book, you have not gotten a copy, but we will be printing and circulating 50-page book color-coded on your constitution. This will be given to your commissioner, Ms. Christina Romero, and it will be circulated. This 50-page book is a breakout of this book. When I gave Mr. Bradley this book to read, and he read it, he took this 50-page book and broke it into 22 pages. That's the equivalent for you. In ordinary language, working all the way into the wee hours of his Sabbath, with his green ink fountain pen. This is the booklet I think you have in your hands. We will begin our education series with this booklet. Well, I would like to end by saying this, which is of critical importance. You were also given a survey, questionnaire, citizen survey. The work of the People's Constitution Commission is guided by a law called the PCC Act number 28 of 2022. Our job is twofold. Review the Constitution of Beliefs, review it, consult the people of Belize, listen to what you say, and give the Prime Minister a report. The data that you filled out, or we're asking you to fill out, it will probably take 3 to 5 minutes, helps us to capture those of you in the audience and those on live stream who may not want to ask a question. We're all wired differently, but you certainly have some thoughts in your mind. This survey helps us to capture your thoughts, so that of the numbers of persons here, and I would like to guess at least 100 or more, and I don't know how much are on smart stream, on live stream, the data is what we put into the final report for the Prime Minister to say, Prime Minister, we've been around the country, the people of Belize are saying this. So we start with education, and going into the latter part of this year, we begin with consultation. Let me end on that note by asking you to please participate. It's almost an hour into our presentation. We want to move down quickly into Mr. Bradley's presentation, because he will be speaking for about 40 minutes, and then we want to have at least 2 hours to listen. Whatever it is you have, please share it, because if it's even a pothole in the street, that issue that is of concern to you can be traced back to a legislative process. If there is noise or something that's upsetting you, that can be traced back to your right for quality of life. So please listen very intently to Mr. Bradley, and then he will open it up for question and answers, and we will go into ask our Vice Chair Dennison to moderate that session. So with that being said, Mr. Bradley, I would like to invite you to the podium to make your presentation. Let's welcome Nicky Bradley, and once again, we will
Good night, everybody. Let me give my special respects to my good friend with that powerful piece of speech. You didn't tell your fellows and Pedros that you were mine of a good for this thing happen. Mayor and councillors in the head table and members of the audience. If you are not hearing me in the back somewhere, I put up my hand. I have my legal advice, so you have to bear with me. I want to really start by telling you I come to San Pedro regularly, but it's from wherever I land to the courthouse and back to Bad Belize City. But tonight, coming here, I ended up meeting my god sister in San Pedro. Last time I see her, probably Jamaica or Miami. It's a big, pleasant surprise, Maureen, to see you after all these many years. You Your mom used to turn up in the ghetto on Christmas and ask me what I want. Okay, there is a little slight adjustment to the program in that, as the chairman had said, he wanted us to discuss the preamble in the Constitution and touch on one or two things. But like, I know he's a very flexible person. That's why he's the chairman. You have to be flexible when you're the chairman. What I am going to do is, because there are more young people who come out here tonight, which is really heartwarming, Minister and Mayor, that we don't broke the record already, because other places so much. Unless of course teacher tell you no assignment, I will have to go. Alright, what I will try to do is, if you give me like 50 minutes of your time, I will take you through a quick review of the Constitution of the Beliefs. So let me start at the beginning. When Belize became independent, we also actually helped draft our Constitution. That Constitution is not like Jamaica and Barbados, where the colonial government gave them a document. The great George Christ took the one from England and he made some changes. Our Constitution has like a page and a half that deals with what is called the preamble. The American Constitution has a preamble. Several constitutions have a preamble. But if I could say so myself, you want to go on the camera, but I want to come close to you. Thank you, technician. The preamble to Belize Constitution, whoever drafted that, that's a masterpiece of words. The Constitution come about, the preamble represents the people who were present at the time we were fighting for our independence. So like the founding fathers in America, our founding fathers and founding mothers, they went around the country speaking to people like what the commission is doing and gathered their views, and they made sure they expressed in the preamble what kind of country they want us to come along and enjoy. So please Google the preamble of the Belize Constitution and enjoy those fabulous words. It is an expression of the principles and the morals and the beliefs of the people who were around at that time. They say in that document that we, this nation, when we just born them, legally speaking, we believe in the supremacy of God. Interesting to me, sinner that I am, that we come tonight and guess what? We actually say a prayer. We call on somebody to say a prayer. We take it for granted. In some countries, we can't do that. We, the people that believe, says the preamble, we believe in the supremacy of God. We believe in family. We believe in the dignity of human beings. We believe in a thing called social justice. We believe that people who labor should get fair wages. We believe that employers should treat employees good. It doesn't go into domestic violence, but we, the people of this country, don't believe that man can beat a man. The time comes to stop that. Read the preamble, it is a fabulous piece of document. And if I continue on, get into that and then distract my own self. So, our Constitution has a preamble, and that preamble is such an integral part of the Constitution that the lawyer at the head table can tell you that it is a part of the basic structure, a legal principle, that you can't mess with the Constitution and mess with the preamble because it's too deeply enrooted in the highest law in the land. After the preamble comes the first section, which says very simply that Belize is a sovereign democratic nation. I won't spend lots of time on that because everybody knows what sovereign means. No other country can tell us how to live, how to do things that come from you, the people. You have an elected representative here. That's how it comes about. Sovereign and democratic. The other section will help me to try to explain to you this book which is called the Constitution of Belize. Section 2 says that the Constitution is the supreme law of Belize. And it says any other law which is not consistent, any other law when not consistent with the Constitution, with anything in the Constitution, that other law is void. Than nothing. Worse than the paper when you put it down. Why the Constitution is so important? Not only because it is the supreme law, it is the only law of its kind. It is the law that says, I am establishing an executive branch of government. That is where we get the cabinet and the ministers and the prime ministers. They are all listed in there. That is how they get their authority and their power. The Constitution says that there shall be a judiciary and lays down what is a judiciary. The Constitution establishes the director of public prosecution, so you don't have no politician who call police and tell them if you arrest this one and if you charge them with and if you do the whole. We don't have that system here. Constitution gives the Prime Minister the authority to appoint certain important positions and commissions, as the chairman said. The Public Services Commission, which is not functioning well in our country. In fact, forgive me, but none of the commissions are functioning well. They need to pick out the people and get some new sets in there, and some young people as well. So the Constitution is not just such an important law, it's the only law which can do those things. It's the only law, that's why you have a court, that's why you have what is called the rule of law, not the rule of men and women. The rule of law is that all of us are equal under the law. And we listen to the law, even the people who make the law, they have to follow the law, otherwise they'll be breaking the Constitution. Then there is chapter 2. So chapter 1 only got in 2 things. Believe sovereign and democratic, and chapter 2, only the Constitution is powerful enough to be weighed at up. Weighed at up. Here is a good reason why the Constitution is so important. Chapter 2 deals with the fundamental rights and freedoms of all of us who live here. That document is so powerful that it covers visitors who come to our country. They are treated equally like us. We don't separate and say to transfer and put them back on a plane and then go. Anybody who is entitled to all those rights listed in chapter 2 of the Constitution of Belize. I have to borrow Elijah 1. These are the things today in the Children Queen Minister. Can't beat you, man. Well, it is so important that I will just take out only 3 minutes and read it to the young people who are here. They go to school and I don't know they have a Constitution of Belize. That is not your fault. One of the things he will say to them is that right somewhere around section 1 or section 2, they need to put in 1A or a 2A, which will say, this Constitution shall be taught to every student in every school in this land. What a foolish people, man. Education, they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and nobody protection. Protection can't done. This is because the fundamental rights and freedom that you enjoy, the Constitution is not giving it to you. It gives you an executive, it gives you a cabinet, it gives you a leader of the opposition, it gives you a leader of the House that commands the majority, becomes the Prime Minister. These rights are yours at the time of your day. As a human being born with them. I'm glad the minister referred to those terrible wars after the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. 1948, the United Nations only got together to try and 20 million Russians died in the Second World War. 20 million Russians died in the Second World War. During the Second World War, Germany, under their leader Hitler, based with so they tell people on the certain places and when they put on a train and send you out to work, forced labor. But they go to work. They take out all the gold and the silver, and they put it in the teeth in that picture, shoot off their hair to make practice and people, and put them in oven where they burn to 6 million human. So 1948, the nation began and gave them a universal declaration of human rights. Nothing new in there. Those rights are rights you enjoy as a human being. In a picture, like I spend a lot of time on words. You have the Constitution protects the right to your life, to your personal liberty. You have protection of the law. You are protected from inhuman treatment. You cannot be forced to work, and certainly you can't be turned into a slave. You cannot have people just coming into your yard and into your house or upon your boat. You are protected from arbitrary search and arbitrary entry. Anytime people will, oh my goodness, my brother is a boy. Just one brother here. He's the man in charge of all the time, and he said, the question from ACT, we need to go up on a bigger rate. To come into your yard or your house, you must have a warrant. Your home is your castle. There is one poor minister where come from Whitney, where if the police have reason, and reason is put on the side, the police have good grounds to believe going to a mission, they or their house, they can go find one JP and swear Almighty God and warrant. Only that which you need to stop. Bring a warrant for everything when you come in my house. Everything else, cocaine, crack, the good people come from Mexico, everything else, they must bring a warrant to come into your house. That's so important. You have a right to enjoy your privacy, your family, in the comfort of your home without people running there to keep up and start up and that you don't on the floor. Your freedom of movement is protected by the Constitution. You come and go and believe as you want. Nobody can stop you when you read these things. They say, where we come from? You don't look like you come from San Pedro. You look like one of the aliens. You come around the curves. You're free to move around this country. That is your constitutional right. You have a right to your conscience. You want to wear your dreadlocks, you want to think for one thing. You even think bad things. That your business, the types of people you want. You have a right to your religion. You see, this is a Roman Catholic school. And guess what? The Constitution, I don't even know what I believe in, and no religion that goes down right to the community. You're free to believe what you want. You believe on their fake news and their food and their conversation. This one ticklish because you're free to express yourself, freedom of expression. We believe that if anybody in the world have that, we have freedom of expression. My goodness, I don't know, so quiet, because people talk the gossip and talk and say, and by the way, let me just tell you, I didn't come with that. RX and Pedro showed for 8 years on it. The minister's hero. Never plan anything or anything like that. Freedom to assemble and associate. No, that is your right. As a matter of fact, they can't victimize you for your political opinions. It's listed right in this section 3, which I read to you. You have a right to your privacy. Your Facebook and your Facebook to take pictures. Some past people, when you are sitting and you yourself will take picture and post it up and get in trouble. They entitled to their privacy. They know their home. When they come to the beach for a different thing, you have a right to work. There is no right for the minister to find work for you. I claim myself for the case of our right to work for the family. Whatever work you want to do, you want to sell from your home, or you get the large show of the sales from meat to the tourists. You want to sell the meat? It's legal. That is why you're right. The work was legal. They cannot, you are protected from discrimination. You can't discriminate against people. You put black, black, and white, white. Now not see that. One people. You can't discriminate against people. Ethnic, race, belief, political opinion. Discriminate against people. You can't take their private property. The government cannot seize private property. It allows private property only include the land where they live, where you work, where you farm. It includes your money, your wages, your salary. Your private property, your cell phone, your boat, your bike. The law protects you and your private property. The only way the government can take a piece of land is where it is needed for a public purpose. And government will take the land and give an in so they take it from alien people. That is unconstitutional. As a matter of fact, when government now put a road show on my village, and we're so proud of the areas they took them to court and get $6 million. We need to learn from the Maya. Maya said in there before any of my ancestors come, so they can nearly the whole of Toledo. San Pedro, if you put it for peace. And in this chapter here, even under a state of emergency, the Constitution provides certain guarantees to citizens of the country. Yeah? There is a procedure. The government will offer a large amount of money for 90 days. You may have nothing that they have to pay thousands of dollars because they were sued for doing it the wrong way. Once it does that in the state of emergency, the minister will go out, what I can say in the beginning. Fancy saying I want to tell you that Section 20 of the Constitution says, and this is so beautiful, Section 20 says that if anybody was violating or breaching your right, all those rights that I tried to list to you from Section 3 to 19, any person in authority who breach your constitutional right you can take him to the Supreme Court for justice. For the money. The best justice the money, you know. Could be in jail and help you, but only $20,000 to go on the day. The Constitution says that Section 20, anybody who will violate the rights right now, you can get your family rushed to the Supreme Court through a lawyer, of course. And the Constitution says that anybody with the plan to, we have intention to breach your constitutional rights, you could still go to the Supreme Court and stop them from you. Can you imagine that? They don't breach it yet, but the Constitution treats it so important to protect your rights. And if they knock down your fence you already built, you could stop them. If you're here in Ghana, architect only to make the plan, you could stop them. Your rights are very, very important. The Constitution would mean nothing if it did not say that I am protecting your rights. You could come to the court anytime to make those who violate it pay money. So students, that is chapter 2. Let me share with you some thoughts, because before you leave here, I would hope someone will text the commission. I'm not a part of the commission. I'm too bad for that. The members are here, they could give you the number, you could text them. Chapter 2, guess what? I don't read anything in here that you have a right to vote. How would that be? How could we not have a constitutional right to vote in any election that is called publicly? So that is a serious proposal. I tell you, the students, so you could deal with that. You want to ask yourself, we're going to start to make picnic. Picnic we will make. That is just the way of the world, the thing called biology. And hormone, okay, we will all make picnic. Well, don't you want your picnic to be able to have a piece of land, I believe? So how come the Constitution will give every believer a right to a piece of land? That seems to be an oversight. With all respect to the minister, it's not applied to him, but some of him could easily give and sell it to we land by the acreage. No house lot, you know. No house lot. Big chunk of we land. They could just sign on paper in our office. You go tomorrow, apply for a piece of land, and go back next month and ask them where your application is. You can't even find it. Now we have another problem. In Belize City, when you hit any of the roads there, you see people stopping some sign. Please help me, I need to do this. Please help me with that problem there. No, man. We have a thing called social security, and where you work, they take out money out of your pay. Sometimes when you're sick, you can't get the attention at the hospital. People go past the Chitumani, millions go past the Chitumani, and past the Chitumani. Because we lose trust in our own hospital. And it is true that they shot the medicine. That shouldn't happen in a free country. Because the previous government dig their money in a social security, take out $50 million and lend one company. They could lend out few money for we money workers and employers. And then when you sick, they don't have the medication. And if you ever get any medicine or any injection from hospital, look on it because the thing may done expired and never get better. You just to drink some like water or something. So you may want to consider whether access to basic health care should be a right in the nation of Belize, this fabulous country that God gives me. Hey, no country like Belize, you know. Yeah, they have beach and they have sea. Everything, and everything. We even have temples built by our brothers and sisters long before Jesus came. In fact, the white tribes in charge of the earth, they can't explain how them people are Egypt and this region build anything like. when I took alien ships home from the earth and teaching, I think they can't figure it out. It's an amazing country that we have. So you must be entitled to a piece of land, and you must go to the hospital and you go and get proper medication and treatment. I'm so proud of your minister because you know, don't believe me, they get the money for building a hospital at San Pedro. Big respect to you, man. So that we clap, man. Big respect to you, your representative. I hear the guy say this, but China will not care to me, you know. I don't know, but I want to tell you, Rick, he gets the way to give to me up in the city. Other things I wanted to say to you, the younger generation who are here, is that the chapter 2 that deals with your most fundamental rights and freedom, that's crucial. We need to have a section at the end of the chapter which says something to the effect that any efforts, any attempts, even any intention to weaken, to derogate, to make less forceful any of the rights should first come to the people of this country and the surrounding. And mess with them right, and start to mess with them in a big trouble. In a big trouble, you need to get anything between 3 and 19. Look out, trouble is coming. Okay, the third chapter in the Constitution is straightforward. That is dealing with citizenship. Citizenship straightforward. Here is nothing mysterious about it. If you born a belief, you don't believe that. You need no life interpret. If your mom or a pop or both of them believe them, don't care where you born, you don't believe them. So when I do with the thing there, the guy who picked it up, America, turn American, come back home and believe them too. You will get money from the two countries. You have to move to make money, yeah? Next to the oxygen where you breathe, and the wonderful partner that you have, money is everything. Once you left school, I know you make money, so the program with you, examine your head. Not a case of yes, but examine your head. So, if you marry to a Belizean, you are eligible to become a Belizean. If you live in our wonderful country for 5 years continuous, you are eligible to become an automatic. If you got some bad record, you could do it yesterday, you know what kind of food you broke the law, we don't want that kind of. But after 5 years of following the law, being a good person, you can become a citizen. Well then, before I move on, let me share this with the younger generation. Maybe I'm fairly discriminated generation like that. Because they can't help us, you know, they are slaves to WhatsApp and Facebook. Whoever designed that thing to distract people in the third world, they are genius. I see people walk busy police in the street. Look, the see their message. Something can't even take the eye out of the screen. We live in it. Alright, so I would have spoken to you about the need for a population policy and about the need for an immigration policy, but I won't go into camp for everything tonight. That's alright with me. The other thing is the Governor General. That is another chapter. Let's move to the other one. The Governor General is the King of Britain is the King of Belize. It's a sad and shameful situation. San Pedro needs to say something about it. How somebody else think that we're a king? What kind of fool country that fight for independence and still go down to a foreign sovereign? Well, let me ease the blow by saying to you that it's a tricky thing in law. The king has no power for people. The power only 10 cents a month. He's He is the head of state, not the head of government. We elect ministers and the prime minister to be the people who run the country. We don't elect no King Charles. In fact, I don't like her the way they do Diana. I don't like her. So what's no one he be for me too? I don't know where they do Diana, so. This lady can't stop laughing. Laugh it off. All right, so the Governor General is the representative of the head of state. If the head of state don't have no power, the representative of the no have no power neither. And Section 34 of the Constitution says the Governor General shall carry out the instructions of the ministers or the Prime Minister of government. We elect them. The answer to we. One day will come, we will have a discussion, and no, because I won't get involved with it. But you need to ask yourselves, do we want a ceremonial president, a Belizean, somebody from San Pedro? Especially. Why San Pedro? Because I did a San Pedro the talk. Come here, I'll tell you, take the person to available fan. No, but why? Because San Pedro is the capital of Belize in the tourist business. And that is why I come here, because I figure if nothing else, I could get paid to fly out there, talk and leave it and collect. Because when I got money. No, San Pedro is a part of paradise. I mean, nothing, I don't know where this comes from, and it's just drop out and part of heaven or something. How not so lucky to go on an island like this? We need to deal with that. You get over there and have poor people to work. San Pedro not to have that. Yeah? All right, so after the chapter that deals with the governor, we have another chapter now that comes to the big things. The executive. Then another chapter about the legislature, and a third one about the judiciary. Let me tie them out quickly because I say we're done ready to start to ask questions. It will be a big disappointment if the questions ain't Pilinki. There shall be an executive. That is what the supreme law of the land. And only this law could say that. No law will pass, no else can say that. The Constitution lays down the three major pillars, the three major arms of a government. This is how we are governed. In fact, let me pause and tell you what the minister was leading up to and what the chairman was saying there. The reason why we are going through this very, very historic and important exercise never happened in the history, I believe. In fact, it never happened in the United States of America, the world's most dynamic democracy, that everybody is called upon to put the 2 cents together to say how we could make the Constitution even better than it is. It's all right, you know, it's all right. Like a man, we're all right. You have to work on it, make you know, darling. Not to drink every Friday, come home with the picnic. Work on your man. This is the woman. Work on your woman too. Yeah? So this is important. If it wasn't important, I would not be here. Nor would these esteemed people come. It is very important that we try to make the country better. How you can make the country better? Here is a fabulous opportunity that the government has made available to everybody. All of your views and your opinions are important. Please call in or whatever means you want. You should have a WhatsApp thing where you could just WhatsApp in. The executive branch of government execute, manage, administer the running of the country. That's what they do. You know a lot of other things, but some of them we're not happy with them. But I don't want to go into details on these matters. I will just say to you sharply, let me wait and get there. The legislature, as the word says, that the Constitution set up, their job is to legislate, pass laws. In fact, the Constitution says good laws. just for passing the law because they want to get him a portico money or the monk. I don't want to embarrass nobody, so let me not go there. The legislature also have two other important functions which is important for you to understand. One is only they could pass the budget. The budget, I believe, is way over $1 billion a year. That's the budget, you know. That is what we spend on fireman, on policeman, on BDF, Coast Guard, fix the street, put in light, run road, street, bridge. A massive amount of way over $1 billion is the annual budget of this little tiny paradise. Only the legislature can pass the budget. The executive do the work and see how much police, how much money, how much uniform, how much fuel, and it weighs up everything. And only the legislature could pass the budget. But this is my big beef. Mayor and councillors and minister and Santa John. There is no oversight over the spending, wasting, and stealing of the taxpayers' dollars. There is no kind of strong oversight over that. That is a huge weakness in a democracy. And there are ways it can be curbed, but we won't get into that tonight. So the executive is getting too big for their drives, and the legislature is not oversighting and holding them accountable. You ask for this money, you say I'm spending it on this, make we see. When I want to find out 5 years afterwards, it should be a running audit. This information should be public. Anybody get more than 10 acres of land, it should be public. We should know who they get out of free land. We don't have nothing else, you know. And as minister can tell you, the minister of land, the ball and holler how we run out of public land. We got a lot of land, but they belong to other people. Get your land because none are left directly. The judiciary is another branch of government that is awesome and important. And in the presence of the minister from cabinet, I want to tell you that we are the only country in the world that takes the whole judiciary and put it in the hands of foreign judges. What a foolish people we have become. Fighting for independence from 1950. Come along 2023. We have over 200 lawyers. Yes, all I need beautiful money and I know I'm working at the public service, but there are people in the public service who are competent, capable, and qualified to be judges. Why they are bringing in all these foreigners and us? They don't even understand how we talk in a court. And we have people who are Belizeans who could do. That's a shame on the government. And you young people should say so. Charity begins at home. We don't want to give all the captain jobs to foreigners. All right, so let me come out for that before I say something I shouldn't say. So the Constitution also provides for the public service, as the chairman has said to you. The public service is crucial. 26 ministers can't run the country. That's not their job. Their job is to make policy. And the public officers who are the employees of the state carry out the policy. I know why when I turn up at the airport, somebody see me, oh, that's a dick like they run off remote. Come inside here. Open the suitcase. Show them everything from the floor. That's so much that the man they charge me just because he don't like me. You want independent, impartial public officers will serve all of us because of we taxpaying. You know, they have to serve the minister and they have to serve the country. They know they do a good job. The public service in the country, I believe, is going through meltdown. They are demoralized, then they get lazy. You go to the office, they look on the phone, they talk, then they watch you like, where you come and disturb you, stay up on the phone. Man, where they go on with we? We the pay them, no? We only pay them every time you buy one. You know I mean, I say we, but we no pay tax. Anytime you buy one, belly king, whatever it is, your clothes, your food, everything, that tax. Come on, man, we could do better than this in this country. There's another chapter where deal with the finance, and I will finish here. Another chapter in the Constitution. all public monies are to be deposited in a fund called the Consolidated Fund. You understand what that means? You know there was a government when they get money from Taiwan, they put it in our next fund, where the Accountant General and the Auditor General and the people of Belize don't know. The House of Representatives, I sound sometimes like representatives, but it's not that. It's not that I'm saying. So if you go put the money, look on the big one. The minister, you say, that's why I like him. By the way, he don't know we are neighbors. So that he bought a car right in front of the park. The middle landed, he don't pass after the Monday mornings. From the ministry. But I can't hard, so yes, these are serious matters. The Constitution sets out to protect the taxpayers' money. Every money we come in public is to deposit in a one fund. So we could all know how much we go in and how much we come out. You can't put the money in our next fund. The only way you do that is like you have a hurricane relief fund. Or you have one big part of San Pedro start to sink with global warming. Well, not a big part. It can't happen fast. Thank you, God, for that. The water won't come slow. Now we are dig from one side and we are pull up the land. The more the water they come with the full up. We are beat it. That's the way I tell you. Can't sink San Pedro. We are not the Titanic. We can't be sunk. So the Constitution of Belize is an important document. The importance is that this is the way we will make our country better. We not ask nobody to be bush lawyer. We not ask nobody to get into any of the detailed matters. You say what kind of country you want and let them put it in the kind of law that is necessary to do that. Yeah? I want to make one more observation before I give back the microphone. Well, two. The chairman hit on a very important matter. A lot of words are in the Constitution. Too much words. The great George Price used to always say to the minister when in a cabinet or when they anywhere they talk and talk. Brevity of words, minister. Brevity of words. That applies to the Constitution. You know, make no sense for you to say, I have a right to this, so and so and so. Then they start to tell you, but if this happened, maybe you don't really have the right, and if that happened, you don't want that. I want you to go and Google the Constitution of the United States of America. War, mongering America. They don't see one war where they never love. They have gone wrong. They need to bring back Trump. But you read the American Constitution, and it says exactly what it is, and it's done there. You don't need to hear, yes, you have the right, but you know, in the case of a war, in the case of this, no, man, I don't have the right and I don't have it. We know, as the minister has said to you, and that is the law. Your right no go over the right of anybody else. How do we know that? You could say anything you want, you know, but you can't defame somebody. You can't say something when it's not true. You can't hide behind your freedom of expression. You say that one day, there are big gay rights, and there are big B-A-T-T-Y, so and so. You can't do that with people unless it's true. You can't defame people's character. Ministers are always under attack. They say all kind of things, but then it's not fair. Just that they don't want to hear people a quote. You speak the truth. It's enough Facebook. And even from Facebook, you put anything, cybercrime on Ketchum, Mr. Cole will send his officers to arrest you. You can't do wrong the place to abuse your right. Yeah? But let me tell you one more time that this big 160-page document shouldn't get any bigger. Business will get smaller. We need to just say what you have to say and let it guide you. And thank you very much for listening to me.
I want to thank Mr. Bradley for his presentation. That is, as he said, on the preamble and their fundamental rights. We want to stop there. We will be back working with the Commissioner, Christina, to look at other areas of the Constitution. But at this point, we would now like to break into the session where we will ask Vice Chair Dennison, who has been a pillar of strength to my office. This is no easy assignment for us to do. To take 18 months and go around this country and trying to educate you on that document. So these little booklets, we are encouraging you, please read it. There is a page in the back that you can scan for the Constitution. But please read this if you want to research something, you have the Constitution in the back that you can scan. But at this point, I would like to call on Vice Chair Glenfield Dennison, who has been very instrumental in helping my office and helping us to progress on this national consultation education exercise. He will be moderating this session. We ask you to please put your points, and if you want to hablar en español, podemos contestar. But please put your questions, as Mr. Bradley says, your brevity of language, that we can give maximum persons the opportunity to participate. And finally, before I hand over the microphone, please, it's very important to this exercise. Don't leave this auditorium with your survey form not completed. Please hand it to one of the volunteers. I ask you, it is important that we can tell the Prime Minister, we came to San Pedro, there was 150 persons there. This is what the San Pedranos said about fundamental rights and the preamble and about their country. It's all in that survey. The Statistical Institute of Belize will help us to diagnose it. We don't manipulate the data. With that said, please help me to welcome Vice Chair Glenfield Dennison.
Good night, everyone. The format for the question and answer. So the mic is ready. We're going to ask that we keep the questions as brief as possible. We want to hear from you, but we also want to hear from everybody else. If you guys are willing to stay till 12, that's cool with me. You just give me some snacks, so I'm good. But the schedule is for ending at 9 o'clock. We had a late start, so I'm sure we'll just go over the time. We want to hear from you. There is no need to try to frame your issue or concern from a constitutional standpoint. Just come top of the mind, right? Tell me the issues that are there. We're going to write it down. Mr. Bradley is here to field questions. I will assist where possible, and we go from there. So, Caleb, do you have the next mic? So, Caleb has the mic at the front. Don't all rush up at once, but the floor is open to you. We want to hear from you. Let me say this one thing, please. The PCC is here to record what you have to say to us. You are instructing us. So you may come up here and think you have to say, oh, we would have liked, or want to think about whatever, not that. Until we want. Everybody clear upon that? If I'm not sure if you tell me, or ask if that is to tell me, and then I'll write it down. Can't write down want to tell me. Everybody clear upon that? Alright. The floor is open, the mic is over here. I asked you identify your name if you were from an organization. Just
Hi, good evening.
The recording we are not going to record your name, but just I like know who I talked to.
I'm Melanie Paz. A lot of community service here in San Pedro. As Mr. Bradley mentioned, that there should be an addition in the Constitution that it should be taught to the students in school. I also think that the part where the basic human rights should be taught when the police are getting their training, because we seem to have a lot of issues with that, not only here but countrywide. And also in just reading this brief booklet that you handed out, where it's the rights associated with liberty of the person, subsection 11, bracket 2, where it says no person except by consent if under 18. And this applies to religion. However, in our country, we allow young women at 16 years old to get married and have consensual sex at 16. So for religion, it's 18, but sex is 16. I think that something needs to be changed in that. Thank you.
Sorry, I was trying to go to the provision. You want to tell me it again? The liberty of the person.
Sorry. In one of the sections here, it says if you're under 18, you need consent from parents what is it? In other words, they can't force you to go into any religious ceremony or observance. And for that, you have to be 18 or over. But yet, in our country, it's legal for a 16-year-old girl or boy to have sex. But in religion, they have to be over 18. We need to change the constitution where it's either 18 for everything or 21 for everything for that matter. Or you can have 16 for one thing and 18 for another thing, when I think young girls at 16 shouldn't be able to have consent. They're not adults yet.
Okay. The reason I ask for clarification is because the age of consent is not in the Constitution.
Well,
so that's why I was asking for clarification.
I think, something needs to be done, because from cases that I know of, once they're 16, that's the age of consent, but something in the Constitution needs to be set of what the age of consent is.
Okay, I understand your point now.
All right, thank you.
So just to clarify, you're suggesting that you would like that the age of consent be in line with the 18 years in the Constitution. Understood. You see how it works? Like you don't have to tell me, right? So that's why I have to make sure I understand what you're saying. So thanks for going through the exercise, right? Mike, please.
Hello, good night. My name is Gabriel Zetina. I apologize in advance for my ignorance, but this is the first time I've been exposed to the People's Constitution. So one thing I would like to have added, because you see when a party is in opposition, they preach about transparency, especially when it comes to public funds. So I would like that the People's Constitution Commission add an independent sector where they can hold elected officials accountable, and if necessary, jail for the misuse of public funds.
Duly noted. Do you have any suggestions? Mr. Zatino? You have any suggestions as to what that would look like?
At this point, I guess I'm thinking from a standpoint of beginning to have good governance within this country of Belize. So I guess that's open for discussion. This is just me thinking, but it would be a good step forward for good governance.
Thank you.
Pleasant good night. My name is Jorge Aldana. I have a couple recommendations that I would like to suggest to the Commission. First and foremost is the renaming or addition to our Constitution of a 7th district. I believe that it is high time that the Keys be reclassified into a 7th district, with its municipal authority being San Pedro, and that San Pedro be recategorized into a city. We have displayed growth. We have constantly, from 2001, have a growth rate of 17% in our population. And I think there is general consensus in the population and the two political parties to have the Keys reclassified as a 7th district. And I think it is the opportunity now to have that reflected in the new constitution. The second one goes in line with what Ms. Paz was saying. And I'm happy that we have somebody from the Women's Commission there on the constitution and on the head table. When it comes to the protection of our children, I think, especially female, the law needs to realign that you are a child up to the age of 18 and you cannot give consent to anything. You are a child up to the age of 18. Punto final, right? And then my third one has to do with the crime situation. I think that we need to reclassify crime in Belize, first, second, and third degree. And I don't know, maybe Mr. Bradley could shine some light into this. What happened to the death penalty in terms of crimes where people premeditate to commit murder in our country? I think it is high time to look at, you violate my right, then you'll end your right. And if you kill somebody premeditated, then I think we need to look at the death penalty as a maximum penalty for people who commit a crime and premeditate in committing that crime. Thank you.
Good night. My name's Jack Foreman. Earlier, Mr. Bradley was talking about land and land rights and land for us Belizeans. One thing I would like to suggest, because in many other countries that I've lived in and I've gone to, when it comes to the ownership of land, that belongs to the people. For some reason in this country, we allow foreigners and immigrants to come with foreign money and come and purchase a lot of land, a lot more than we can even get ourselves. And that's raised the price to a level that Belizeans can't afford. Like, I don't know about any of you, but I'd like to have some beachfront land. And right now, we have no access to that. So my recommendation is, when it comes to land rights, I feel that one, only citizens of this country can own land here. Two, if they want to use our land, we have a system in place where we can lease it to them, because that's how you build generational wealth. Right now, with the system we have in place, yes, we can get land, and yes, we can take that land and sell it. We make a quick money, but then what? Two, another recommendation I have. We need some better urban planning when it comes to our cities and our towns and our villages. Especially here. Right now we have a very big influx of development. And how many bars do we have here? How many libraries do we have here? Not like one. Where do we have for children to go play? We have maybe, I know, 2 main parks and some in other developments, and look at them. Right now we're taking the Central Park and we're building up into like a commercial area. So we need some more development into urban planning so that this island isn't just overrun. I mean, tourism is great, but we need to take care of our people. That's about it.
Thank you. Good night, one and all. When we look at our Constitution, we're looking at humans. But we're forgetting that in this earth, we need to think of living things. Mr. Foreman touched on a very important portion, unsustainable development. That is where we're going. We need to stop and think and take the right steps when we think of development. We need to ensure that it's not only the constitution of the humans. Somebody has to make a cry for all of our animals. Who is protecting the manatee? Who is protecting the fish? Who is protecting the birds? Who is protecting the lobster, the fish, and the conch? When we give away permission to development, we throw that away. It is not sustainable. So when we think of our constitution, we need to think of living things. Somebody has to be the voice for the birds. Somebody has to be the voice for the reptiles, for the amphibians, for the fish, for all living things that are out on our land. Somebody has to be the voice. If you walk around San Pedro today, and any part of Belize and the world, we're crying about heat. We're crying about heat. Temperatures are very high. And it's very easy. I can take a standard 2 or a standard 3 kid and I ask him, you know why? We cut away the trees. We increase heat. We increase heat. It's unbearable for us now. Look at Texas. 137 degrees. Wow. But why? We become what we don't want to do. Basically what we're doing in Belize, we're loving our country to death. That is what we're doing. We're loving our country to death. Because one person comes in and he puts a development and he's doing right, everybody else has the right to do the same thing. But no, it shouldn't be that. We have to know how to manage it properly. We're not managing our country. We give away big land for people to do cane farming in an area that should not have been cane farming. Then when it rains, the water goes into the villages where the people are living and we go, I wonder why. We don't have to go far. We go to the primary school and the kids will tell you why. One word that really, really is not doing its portion is the Department of the Environment. Why is it that the public have to be the one to come and tell the government, you know what, this is not right? The job of the Department of the Environment is to be able to make things sustainable. That is the job of the Department of the Environment. But no, it has to be the public to come out and say, you know what, we can't do this. We can't allow 3 big ports to be in one area and dump all of the stuff outside the reef and expect it not to touch Turnef or the main barrier reef. Where is the mentality? We need the Department of the Environment to do its proper job. That is what we need to do. It doesn't have to be the public to tell the environment to do that. When you do public consultations as part of the Department of the Environment for Development, the public is not even allowed to speak. Then why do you do a public consultation? The purpose of that is to hear who is going to lose. Who are the users, who are the stakeholders that are going to lose when that development is accepted? But then they come out and, we did a public consultation over there, everything is okay, let's sign it over. No, that's not the purpose. The Department of the Environment must start to protect what the word says, our environment. We have few ecosystems, but all of them are very important. A tourist passes me on the street and he says, man, where's the beach? You know what my answer is? Sir, we have a barrier reef. We cannot have a beach. It doesn't go together. The barrier reef needs seagrass beds and mangroves to be able to survive. You want a reef? Go to Acapulco. You want a beach? Go to Acapulco. What we have here is the New World's largest living coral reef, a barrier reef. That's what we have here. That means a lot. Whosoever wants to come and enjoy can come and enjoy that. But when we allow the development to keep going, we have to do it sustainably, or we're going to end up with what we don't want to say, ruins. That's what will end up there, a large line of rocks that are not living. So let us go and say, Constitution not only means us humans. Somebody has to be the voice for the other living things that cannot come to a meeting like this. Thank you.
Don't take the mic. Take what mic? Yeah, just to clarify. Remember, I need you to tell me what you want, right? So, Mr. Bradley, tell you about fundamental rights and all anything. Are you suggesting like rights for the environment?
You look at the book.
Right to sustainable development.
The book says in there the environment. Yet you look at it, there's no protection of the environment
So
in there.
you want protect? Continue that. Will you get there? So you're telling me you want protection of the environment as one of your rights, one of your fundamental rights.
Sometimes
that should be there.
we don't have to go and invent more laws. They're there. Our biggest failure here is we don't have the enforcement for that. That is our biggest failure. So when we talk about it, we need to enforce what we have written in paper. I'll use a short example. It says that we have a closed season for lobster. And that is a good thing because we have to give the lobster a chance to reproduce so that we can have more lobsters. But the fisheries department has very little enforcement. Then throughout the whole reef, during that closed season, the fishermen that don't follow the rules, because you have excellent fishermen, I hope they're not getting me wrong, you have excellent fishermen, but you have also your bad elements out there. And they're the ones taking it, and I am ashamed for local people that buy it. I am ashamed for those restaurants that buy it. Because it takes a community to run a community. So if we say no sale of lobster, then a restaurant shouldn't buy it, a household shouldn't buy it. Because the purpose is so we can have it tomorrow.
Manage access. Is that working? Manage access?
Like I said, we have beautiful laws, but we're lacking enforcement. If we can have where the general populace backs up the enforcement, because they only take it out because there's a demand, people are buying it. So it needs everybody to be a part of this constitution. Everybody has to put in their piece. And we definitely need more enforcement.
Thank you.
Good evening. Just to add to what Billy was saying, I do believe, I am not really sure, but maybe it could be clarified, but I hear that many times when we have constitutions and stuff like that, and we have, for example, protecting the environment, consultations are being done, different groups put up their opinions, and at the end of the day, there is a law that states that the final word or the final decision to that is by the minister. And I always believe that that is something that overrides any committee, overrides any group of consultation or anything, if the ministers have the authority to approve these licenses at the end of the day.
So you want that to be lessened, removed?
Yes. I believe that it is that ministers that are supposed to make that decision final on their own when there has already been consultations and pros and cons to different situations. There are laws, and that's what needs to be followed and not be changed and made as a final decision by one minister.
Yes. And there's a gentleman over here.
My name is John Boltzman. I am not a citizen yet, but I hope to become. Just following through on what was just said there here on this sheet, second to the last item on the left-hand side of page 2, it says violations of code of conduct or oath of office by government officials should have a penalty attached. And it does seem to me as an observer here, we have a lot of laws that have been in place, but apparently ministers are able to just override those laws, and so we have an 8-story building going in that by every understanding I have should not be being built, but it is here on this island. There are others 6 stories tall, and there's some reason why these things apparently have been approved and permitted, and it seems that somebody broke the law, and it must be somebody in authority. So it seems to me that there should be a penalty applied, and I can guess why these might be approved, and the persons who approve them probably need to pay a penalty.
Can't seem to tell him. Thank you very much for your comments, sir. I just want to, just by way of commentary, say that one of the things that the PCC really wants to do is to educate. And so we find that some more enlightened people would be able to identify the laws that are being breached and that sort of thing, but that it comes down to like a consciousness, like to elevate the minds of everyone to an understanding of what's really at risk. And so this constitutional educational campaign is geared towards that, to raising these issues to a higher level so that we can all be aware, because it's hard to ask for a penalty or for protection for the environment if people are not, if we're not discussing what is at stake for our future generations. So thank you guys very much for the comments, because it's in that context that the Constitutional Commission is here. We're trying to get these issues raised, and I was looking forward to today because in San Pedro these issues are heightened because the Ononoga mahogany tree for cut down. This is the resource that you have. So thank you guys very much, and please keep the comments coming because we're getting some good discussions going.
Good night. My name is Pedro Garcia. I'm a lecturer at the San Pedro Junior College and a teacher at San Pedro High School. My concern, or what I would definitely want to see in the Constitution, is equal rights to service from public officers from any public or government place. And what I mean by that is that, as someone rightly said, if you go and put in an application, you won't see it till about probably a month after or 2 months, or never ever did they consider an application for you. So as a Belizean, I believe that everybody has the right to go to a public office and be treated the same, get the service fair with no extra, because most of the time the culture in Belize here is you pay extra and you get it fast. And I think that if that happens, there must and there have to be some type of penalty, because then that is a violation of my right. Because what I spent hours in a line just to be treated unfairly, unjust. So something has to be written in there for us as Belizeans. That's one. Two, when it comes to, especially when it comes to Social Security and these funds that are of the people, there should be something in the Constitution that says they cannot touch it, none at all, without our consent. And what does that mean when it comes to consent? We have to say a yes or a no. And that has never been done. So there must be something in the Constitution that says where we can put a say in terms of a yes or a no. Because most of the times you hear that part of, on the news, something happens to SSB funds. That's my money. I never gave permission for them to use my money. And we've been paying Social Security for years.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. I like provoking thought, right? So, not give up the mic yet. So, are you aware that the Social Security Board is required by law to publish any investment that they want to do, and they invite the public to comment? And if you are, have you ever commented?
I am aware of that, and I have never commented because they have I have never received a text, an email, or message from Social Security or from any investment fund that clearly told me, do you want me to touch your money? Yes or no? I have never received that.
You see why I try to provoke the thought is because sometimes there already exists a mechanism of accountability in our system. And I'm not saying our system is perfect in any way, and I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just bringing it out so that people can be aware that, you know, while you protest from the Social Security Board with your thing, left me money, look, I'm just saying that, and a lot of the things like that is not a strict constitutional issue, but we're going to try to frame it on how you do it. The first one, definitely transparency, accountability of public officers. I've looked at it, but the exact mechanism would be hard to put in the Constitution, but I'm saying that you want some sort of say in how the Social Security funds are assigned. But I just tell her, no, you're done, could go. Tell the line where to go, all right? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Christine Syme. I was born and raised here on San Pedro, and please excuse me for my ignorance. I really am not familiar with the Constitution, and I don't have any recommendations. However, I am a newly sworn in Justice of the Peace. I represented our country in Austria as Miss Belize in 2015. I also am a real estate agent, and my family has been in real estate on the island for over 40 years. I am happy to be a part of development here on the island, and I am fortunate to be here, and thank you for putting together this seminar and question and answer portion. I would like to just give a little bit of insight, and I've written something that I think would be beneficial to the community. One second.
She had me worried because she pulled up her laptop and I said, man, we're going to get slammed right now.
No, I am actually very proud to be here and a part of this meeting that is taking into consideration the community. I am happy to be a part of the development, and I do trust that with time and effort, we will be able to be a country with sustainable development, proper infrastructure, proper utilities, proper law enforcement, proper sanitary disposal, etc. I think that that is something that we as a community do deserve. I was happy to attend a seminar a couple of months ago regarding the progress of the island and the infrastructure and sustainable development throughout. It was actually mostly about the north end of the island. As everybody knows, our island is about 26 miles long, and we occupy about 5 miles densely, and then the rest of the north of the island is continuously developing quite rapidly. I'd like to mention that most of the clients that I have are foreigners. The people who I sell properties to, land, condos, and home, are foreigners. And something that some people may not know is that when these properties are bought by these individuals, they are taxed with something called a land transfer tax or a stamp duty tax. This is 8% of the purchase price. That means if someone is buying $1 million beachfront property, they are paying $80,000 in tax to the government. And that means that our real estate market actually is one of the #1 income generators for the country, as well as tourism.
Is the tax the same for Belizeans?
No, it is not the same for Belizeans. Belizeans are taxed at 5%. I look forward to having the lands department that is able to move swiftly. I'd like to also mention that I am a new homeowner with my boyfriend. We bought in the San Pablo area, and my property taxes, now I'm switching to property taxes. So property taxes are the taxes that I pay to our municipal government, and I'd like to mention that those are very, very low if you consider what other property taxes are for other countries. I mention this because I'd like to explain that if my road isn't getting fixed immediately by the government, if my infrastructure is not immediately seen to by the government, I have understanding because I do not pay all too much towards it. And so us as individuals in the community, we do have to take things into our own hands a lot of the time. I know that this property taxes for everybody here on the island are very low, and if we did bring a higher property tax to the people, it would really be difficult because our minimum wage and the amount of cost to live here on the island is quite low still. So I'm not sure what we can do about it, but I'd just like everyone to understand that the taxes are low.
So sorry, so you're saying raise pay and then property tax, not the other way around?
Yes, I don't want to hurt anybody here on the island, and I think that everyone wants to benefit from our government. However, if we're not putting into the government, we cannot expect the moon and the stars. I'd just like to finish with saying the island is ever expanding, and I plan to be here with my family for the rest of my life. As a justice of the peace, I look forward to helping preserve people's rights, and learning the Constitution will definitely help orient me with all of this to be able to help the community, especially with the police officers and our youth. I appreciate this seminar you have put together, and I look forward to seeing the progress.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you so much. No, we have a discussion.
So, one thing I'm surprised nobody has talked about here is education. Education here is expensive. And myself, as I've been able to be educated here, have felt that. I mean, in some instances, if you fail a test, you gotta pay more money to take the test over. That's crazy, you know? I mean, in the United States and other developed countries, you don't do that.
Can you qualify for me what level of education you're speaking about? Just
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Since you start with your children, you guys have to pay for education all the way through, correct? Uniforms, books, paper. That's ridiculous. Like, the people and education is what makes this country. You know, if you have an uneducated country, how are you going to succeed? How are you going to grow? And that's something that I believe should be in the Constitution. Example, we have people who are ministers of certain facilities and subjects, and they're not educated in that subject. I mean, so that's one thing like I just heard, I was thinking about myself becoming a justice of the peace, correct? I just heard a justice of the peace here doesn't even know the Constitution. How is that does that make sense? You know? So that's one thing I think is very important that needs to be put in our Constitution, because unless we uplift our education, we are going to continue to be subservient to all these foreigners who come in here and take advantage of it just hurts me. It's very personal, because I've watched this happen in other countries. My mother is from the island of St. Martin in the Dutch West Indies. And I remember it from the 70s and 80s, just like I remember here. And yes, I saw the growing pains, but they made some moves to allow the country to grow and develop for themselves. Unless we enact some of those rules here, there's going to be nothing left for future generations.
Okay. Just pause, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose. Remember I said I want to tell we what we put in the book?
Yeah.
Listen, I've heard you say education in San Pedro is expensive, the people need to be educated.
What I want you to put in the book is that education to a certain level should be free.
Yes.
Period.
See, I can't say it.
Okay, there you go.
Anything else you want to tell me?
Well,
you tell me, you know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking education was important. Land rights, that's something that land rights and restructuring is something in infrastructure we've talked about already.
Should be free. Education to a certain level should be free. What?
Okay, I'll use an example. In the U.S., public education is free.
Okay.
You know, if I want a better education or a different education, I pay for that.
To a certain level? What level are you?
Like all public, all primary and secondary until, what they call here, sixth form? Yeah.
Technically.
Think.
Do they have public schools in San Pedro? Faith-based? It's only faith-based and private school. No government school, Minister, right? Okay. All faith-based and private. Sound like they tell you need to belong to school, Minister. So primary and secondary school, free education. What about the books? What about the books? Now, tell me, man. Halata may tell me. I only could write one to tell me, you know. Somebody grab the mic and say anything. I can only write one to tell me. Yes, Minister, please, you are a citizen of
Hello, I have the mic. I think what happens here is that even if education is free, there also has to be a cap on fees that schools charge, because even if they make education free, the individual school will choose to charge water fee, garbage fee, bathroom fee, crayon fee, all of those things, fees.
All right, the minister was asking to have the mic. Sir, you have a comment? Go ahead,
I wanted to talk a little bit about, I see in many issues that we have in our country, I look at the big picture, and I always see that, for example, our Commissioner of Police is appointed by the Prime Minister. The Attorney General is appointed by the Prime Minister. I see the Senate that you all that are in front of us right now, Mr. Chanona, was appointed by the Prime Minister. everybody is appointed by the Prime Minister. So at the end of the day, whenever we have, let's say, a criminal or somebody in problems with police, the commissioner has to listen to the Prime Minister. Whatever he says, otherwise, we change him. If the Attorney General is not doing what the Prime Minister is telling, we change them. So at the end of the day, the Prime Minister has control. And what that creates, it creates that we are, once again, many people can be victimized by that politically. Regardless of what political party is in power, it doesn't matter. The Constitution, regardless of what the Constitution says also, if we look at...
Sorry, before you go on, okay, you tell me where you're not on, right? You have an idea about the formulation that you want?
Yes, I think that something needs to be formed, or a body needs to be formed that is not appointed by government, has to be appointed by, I don't know what. For example, in the United States, they have senators. Politicians are appointed by the people, and they will represent a term. But within that term, they are the ones that they control everything. But if you have a group like senators, that they are the old school of a government, and they are the ones that these politicians have to respond to, then we will have a big change in our country. Otherwise, right now, they don't respond to nobody. They do what they want, when they want, spend it, take it, thief it, anything. And nobody to respond to. They also can change and amend the laws, because we saw that during COVID. During COVID, we see Mr. Perefi, and they changed the laws right there and then. So it can be done any day. So whenever we hear, oh, this can be done because the Constitution says, oh, we can't do this because it says, no, it can be changed right then and there, because an Attorney General is appointed that can draft that up immediately, and it goes to Cabinet, and it's approved, and that's it. So I think that we give our government so much power to make this decision.
Who give them the power?
Us that vote them in.
We?
Yes, and we always find ourselves being the ones voting them, and when it's time for election time, we see them, and they ask us for our votes, and then when they get elected, they don't look at us again. Now they are the power.
The minister had a comment next. I just wanted to provoke that the power is for the people still, you know? Like, just in case we may forget, right?
Yeah, thank you. I think I am entitled to speak as a citizen, as well as also as an elected person that you have elected me, but I think I want to kind of direct to what the issue and the purpose of this consultation is, that what we can add to better, as how Mr. Bradley is saying, is how we can make it the Constitution to be more lean, to be more trim, to be more effective and to the point and precise. I wanted to touch base on what, actually discuss the issue on what the gentleman, Mr. Foreman, mentioned about education. You're right. I believe in the Constitution. We need to put in there to say free education from kinder all the way to university. That is something I would openly support that should be in there. But let me add something here, that perhaps in the Constitution, we should have learned from other nations, as you rightfully say, in the Caribbean. For example, health and education, the biggest chunk out of that $1 billion budget that we discussed every year in Cabinet when it's time to discuss the budget, almost over 70% of that. Imagine you take this cake and divide it in 3 slices. 2 slices goes to education and health. The next slice is divided upon the different departments. That's how important it is, that money that goes into these 2 ministries, but yet that's still not enough. So obviously that's something we need to do to be more lean and trim. Perhaps we can do something, and my suggestion is, Legion, in the Constitution. What are the 3 most important things that we can do for our country? And you're right. Education is one. Health, a healthy country is important. Economically speaking, we need to have a healthy country. Thirdly, and not last, very important, I personally believe, is sports. These three. Perhaps we can do in that constitution that whatever we pay in taxes, there's a certain percentage to be earmarked into the consolidated fund that Mr. Bradley is saying. And by the way, Mr. Bradley, just a little bit of, I don't mean to call you out, I'm not doing, but the $30 million for the hospital for San Pedro has been secured as a grant from Taiwan. But that funding is in country. However, because it is monitored by Taiwan under the OECC, that fund is going to be by oversight by the Taiwanese. In other words, every dollar we spend and everything, we have to be accountable to them because of... no, I'm just adding it for it to be the oversight. But perhaps the point is, I'm trying to say is that we can do that in the Constitution. Perhaps to say taxes, a certain percentage for health, a certain percentage education, a certain percentage goes to sports. 3, to improve. Because when you build this hospital, you're right about education. The nightmare is going to begin when you build a hospital, not the structure. How are we going to put in 250 people in there to work permanently there? Doctors, nurses, radiologists, pharmaceuticals, everybody. That is a nightmare for the ministry right now. Why? We don't have the capacity. You see? So I'm just going to your point to support your point. Education is key, and free education, I believe it should be in the Constitution, enshrined in the Constitution. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good night. Perhaps this does not pertain to what we are discussing right now, but Mr. Perez mentioned education. Next week, our children are set to return to this same high school. There has been a major part of this high school where the infrastructure fell down. Like I'm saying, maybe this is not the right forum and maybe not pertain to this discussion, but we have both our leaders here. We have our Mayor Wally Nunes, we have councillors, we have Mr. Perez, our minister, and we have several parents here. Every day I go to the page to check if there has been a release from the education of ministry or from this particular high school stating what has been done to correct it. There is nothing, absolutely nothing. Videos have been posted on social media. As a parent, there will be many students. I think they say the capacity coming is 700. I'm not saying that 700 is going to occupy the first, second, and third floor because there are other structures. But is this facility safe for the return of our children, Minister? And sorry to use this moment, but since you touched on education, then I have to bring this up.
Coupled with both of you have said, major issues. But one of my major issues is the danger of insinuation of morally deficient philosophy into the established principles that have brought our fledgling nation successfully this far. God must be acknowledged as supreme, as the whole content of the Constitution is anchored in biblical precepts and have no solid foundation in God's presence, is diminished in any way from the documents, and potentially perverse Western concepts are allowed a foothold. Western civilization is already well on their societal destruction because of their non-inclusion of God and their formal institution. We should not follow suit, lest we suffer a similar fate as awaits them, as a rebellious spirit against God can only end badly. Great civilizations have come and gone in the dust. This great civilization has historically unmatched capacity to put pause on our creation for eons of time. We start this process at the level of reasoning. Please make no mistake. Please. God bless all of you.
Thank you. I want to ask if I get a photo of, yes, please, because I realized I couldn't keep up, but I saw you had it tight. The lady all the way at the back who's leaving, I think, oh, the one with the green hat. The lady with the green hat had her hand up. No? But you had your hand up, right?
Going back to taxes. My name is Susan Watts, and we've lived here since 2016. Love the country, don't want to go back to America, want to stay here forever. We found out the first year we were here that the government doesn't come around and ask for our taxes. We just have to know to pay the taxes. If the government would actually send out the bills to all the gringos that live here, you would probably triple your taxes. You could put in your roads, you could pay for your schools. But if you don't tax the gringos, which I'm one of them, and the Americans and all of the other people that are here, and I'm not saying all the locals, but anyone that comes into this country, you need to go after their taxes. The taxes here are very low for us, and there's no reason that the immigrants coming into this country shouldn't pay their fair share of taxes. And that's all I wanted to say, was just make sure, get the government to collect the taxes. They're not. They wait until a sale of the houses come, and then they collect maybe 1/3 of the taxes. And I'm sitting there going, if you owe $20,000 in taxes, and the government says, oh, just pay $3,000, we're good. That's insanity. So get the government to do its job and collect the taxes from the immigrants that are coming into this country and buying up all the big properties. And keep God in the government.
Good night. My name is Hector Alamia, better known as Tito, sports enthusiast in the island. I've read the Constitution on sports, and there's nothing that really protects an athlete in the Constitution of Belize. It talks about the governing bodies, yet it doesn't talk about the athlete. The athlete should be given rights to professional medical centers, to nutrition, and so on. And I would like to see something in the Constitution that gives athletes that right. As we know, healthy athletes make a better country. And it's proven, athletes have been proven to become world leaders. So, like I said, I would love to see something in the Constitution that gives more rights to athletes in this country.
I didn't get to finish what I want, other points, but I was waiting to see if others would have commented or add on this that I would want to see in the new Constitution. One of the things I want to see in the new Constitution, I am a mestizo. My ancestors used to run this territory that we call the Mundo Maya. We have our ancestors that were killed. Our people their resources were shipped to Europe, but still we have Europeans as the head of state of my country. I think it is high time that we change the head of state. We don't want no king to be for we head of state. I think we have to elect directly by election. Each and every one of us should be able to elect our head of state by way of ballot. then we should be able to elect our Prime Minister directly by way of ballot as well. I also think that the term of office needs to be reduced to 4 years. No make they have enough time for TFUI. 4 years and out. I also think that the Senate needs to be elected. We need to have an elected Senate. We need to have an elected Commissioner of Police. An elected, Contractor General. Elected judges. That the people, answerable to the people. Because at the end of the day, then they execute the law on we. So we have to have a way to elect these people. Right? So I think, I've mentioned that I believe that we have to cut down the term of office to 4 years.
Yeah, I just need you to give me back from who all you want to elect after the 4 years.
I want you to elect, take out the king out of the constitution.
I got that.
Start with that.
Direct election for head of state.
We know we don't want nobody from Europe to kill for we ancestors.
I got that term of office for central government. I imagine you
4 years.
4 years. And then go from there.
The Prime Minister elected directly by the people. Head of state elected directly by the people. Senate elected by the people. Commissioner of Police elected by the people. Judges, if possible, elected by the people. And I will say this, the Prime Minister should be able to pick educated ministers with degree in their field from outside political elected people. We need our ministers to be educated in the field they represent. No electrician to be Minister of Health. You understand me? No a shoemaker they become Minister of Tourism. You don't understand me? Or whatever the case is. If you want to be the Minister of Health, you have to have a PhD in health or some related field in health. So I believe the Prime Minister ought to be able to pick 16 members of the public who is well educated to represent ministries. Right? So I think that is part of the things that I would want to see in the Hoyokala aspect of the Constitution, Mr. Dickey. The judiciary, the legislative. The legislative changes that I would like to see, right? And now that I have the mic, I have our next one. I think municipal within the Constitution, they have to make some level of amendment to the level of the Constitution and do it municipal bodies. I think, and Mr. Dickey would be able to shine some light with this, many of the municipal issues affecting us go straight to the magistrate court, clog up the magistrate court. I think the municipal body, and I think Mayor Wale would happy if we have jurisdiction over municipal court and municipal police to deal with these things like delinquents with ticket when not get pay, overgrown lots, you park on the road and you not have a permit to have a vehicle, and make that go to the municipal court instead of clog up the magistrate court. So I think the Constitution must reflect that we now have to look at municipal police and municipal court system.
Hi, good evening. I spoke earlier. I didn't mention my name. My name is Carol McCann, and I spoke about keeping the Lord in our preamble, okay? So I just want that reiterated. So I'm been coming to San Pedro for 34 years, and I live here full time, and I really think, I see what's happening to my country, to my ex-country, Washington, D.C., with taking the Lord's name out of the Constitution, of the preamble. I really am adamant about keeping this in this country. It cannot happen here. Okay? My name is Carol McCann. Thank you so much. I hope you don't mind that I gave you a copy.
Thank you, Carol. So, Carol, just to clarify, you want God in government and in the preamble. Gotcha.
And also, I was like, the chairwoman for the People's Coalition Committee here in Belize. That's what we were was Public Relations Committee for the Police Department here, and I served as a volunteer for 2 years. So that was under Superintendent Sandra Bowden. She was one of my colleagues. So was Jorge Adana, one of my colleagues, and so we're so happy that we could participate in San Pedro.
I'm good. I just think, getting back to the preamble and the provisions, the protection provisions, I think, should include a specific guarantee of economic autonomy for citizens, free of discrimination by commercial banks and by the Central Banking Authority in concerted efforts directed by a government or other formal institutions, as happened in Canada, where Mr. Trudeau froze the accounts of citizens because they were deemed to be associated with protesters. And I think that that's a dangerous precedent. I think that it happened in England also. You don't hear much about it, but it's a very dangerous thing, and I think that protection should be included in our Constitution, a guarantee of economic autonomy.
Sabrali, you care to comment about money, anything? All right.
Oh, you're asking Mr. Dickey if he would like to comment on that? I really would appreciate hearing that. What?
The Constitution of Belize right now protect you and your money the bank. They can't do what you hear has happened in Canada or in Britain. Your monies would only be frozen if, in fact, well, you can't land a big plane this idea, but if a lot of white snapper turn up out of the sea there and you find some, and somebody tell the police and they report it to the authorities, they would freeze your account until you clear up where you get this whole big amount of money suddenly come in. Other than that, your money is safe under the laws of this country. I mentioned to you that there is protection of property, and people think that property only means land. Your money is your property.
Specifically, because I understand that the property protection is there, all the protections are there, but in the case of in England, it took a lot of turnaround before they got it straight. I don't think Canada has straightened that out yet, and there are a lot of people suffered, families suffered because their accounts were frozen because of a political situation where they were deemed to be associated with protesters. So.
Actually, this raises the question that I wanted to mention. During periods of emergency, page 13 in this small booklet, the Know Your Rights, apparently all of our rights go away under any period of emergency. And that was what happened in Canada. And this is of great concern to me as we're seeing this kind of period of emergency being declared and suddenly all the rights go away. I'm deeply concerned here in Belize as well. People's rights disappeared a couple of years ago because it was declared a period of emergency.
All right, we live in a good country. A lot of things are not the way we would want them. The two concerns that have been raised are when the state of emergency is declared in this country under the law that allows for it, it has nothing to do with your bank account. Otherwise, Mr. Pedro said, change that, you think you want to freeze for your bank account? So, those things that you are concerned about, a state of emergency is that in some section of the society, either some infectious disease, some contagious disease, some earthquakes. State of emergency is specific, you know. You can read you got it there, maybe you could just read section 18 and section 19, but it has nothing to do with your economic situation. It is that people are not allowed to either come out of an area or go into an area until the emergency situation is brought under control. It has nothing to do with your freedom for your religion. Can't stop you from WhatsApp and talk to your sweetheart. Can't get in any other thing except your movements, which may cause some problems. For example, everybody, they watch Hawaii and Maui. They wouldn't want those people to go back where their houses were until they have had a chance to check, see if there are dead bodies, if there's any disease coming around, if they need to replant the area or so on. That is all. When a hurricane they come, there are people who don't want to left their house. You have to go there and coax them to left their house. But you're not business with their bank account. So your money is safe, so invest it wisely in San Pedro and you're going clear. On one other matter, since you insist that you repay me extra for talk extra, is that the issue you raised, what's your last name? What's her name? You know what? You're not a rebel, man. You won't cause trouble out there. Always? Okay. Nothing wrong with that neither. Constitution allow you to be as rebellious as you want, just to make Officer Kowo have to send for you. The issue of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen, is going to come up later on as a major issue as the commission goes around the country and people start to learn more about what is happening. In our country, the party that wins the majority is put in charge of the nation. Okay? That is our system. We have a different system from the mighty United States of America. In America, they have an elected president whose duties are laid down and clear. They have an elected Senate who have their own powers and privileges. And there is an elected, they call it the House of Representatives in what they call the Congress. Three separate powers with their own responsibilities. That is not our system of government. Personally, I don't see how in a tiny country you could have an elected Senate. If you have an elected Senate, why do you have elected House of Representatives? Who more powerful? Who will have the final say? Can you imagine the Senate falling into the hands of lone rebels like you? You want to teach them PUP something. Every time they bring one idea and one law, F that. See? How you run the country so Papacito? There are even some countries where you have proportional representation. You see, they have two parties. Whoever gets one monk of vote, they in the government. You go check what happened to them. Italy, they got like almost 12 different government follow. You have to remember that you're electing a government to run the country. And all we need, we the citizens in here, we have to make sure that the institutions and the personalities and the positions are functioning to the max. That is our trouble. Our problem is, if I was a politician, I'd do the same thing. I want my family and my crony and my flunky in a position, and you would do the same thing. But we must make sure that we got a system better than that. Social security is a problem. We must make sure that who they appoint, got the power to appoint again because they either they understand a responsibility or they abuse it. Our problem is we don't have checks and balances. The American system is built on checks and balances. The president can't do what he wants because the House and the Senate want black him. The Senate can't do what he wants because the president and the House want black thing. The House can't do what they want because the Senate and the president want. That is their system. That's why it's not working. That's why anybody in a slight mental condition could go and buy bazooka and missiles and all kind of things and shoot children at school, and they can't stop it. They can't stop an American to go and buy whatever gun they want to buy. The biggest debate is, should we have background checks? You want a fool like that? You want to shoot somebody and nobody gun record and ask my friend to go buy the gun? You know, believe we don't have to do that, then just get it from Costa Guatemala. So remember what we are talking about, people. We want our country to be better. That is why we tackle this opportunity presented to us to find ways to make the Constitution stronger. Don't panic because the Prime Minister appoints the Commissioner of Police. Because the Prime Minister answerable to we. Can't take the heat. You all watch the news and see when that thing with Portico bus. Everybody against that, you know. But we know the focus, the minister who signed that one company not to pay taxes for 30 years, they not arrest him yet. And the question is why? That is what we should ask. How we could make the laws and the people responsible, answerable to we. Not every 5 years, not every 4 years. They just don't teach more in 4 years if you change from 5 to 4. You want a system where they are answerable and accountable. And every person, commissioner, attorney general, prime minister, minister, have to answer to the people at the time the situation is going on. That is what we are searching for. Having said that, it is encouraging that the Senate, which is an appointed body, as they should be, but you don't want the PUP, they appoint PUP, and the UDP, they appoint. Get rid of that and appoint more intelligent people who don't want to flunk you up back at the political parties, who could think through, who could say to you this legislation is faulty, who could say to you why we study this kind of legislation, how we not see something that can push and page your father. We know the focus on the correct thing. When you make a foreigner come here and tell you that the owner tax, we're going to leave jokey Mickey Mouse kind of tax, it's too low. That's what the lady may say. Where you can find it too high. So we need to stay focused. If you want to have an appointed Senate, let it be the appointment of people with integrity and high principles who love the country and not get there for hustle. You know what is the biggest problem in this country? Well, maybe the second biggest. Corruption and hustling. That's the cripple way. Just cut out the corruption and you can have free education all the way to UP. That's the way to fight against. All the money in a Portico business, you go to jail, my boy. They sell you out for 30 years. For 30 years, Royal Caribbean will bring all the ships and all the tourists that they can bring to Belize City. And will pay no taxes. No taxes, people. A man actually sit down and sign on behalf of the government of Belize that for the next 30 years, no business tax, no income tax, no sales tax, no environmental, no tax. Do you know how much millions of dollars will be lost to the country? You know what millions of dollars we will not collect for 30 years because of what they are trying to do? And then, sorry, Minister, but the PUP come and they still try to find a way to do it. We don't need to focus on anything there. Everybody in a Portico business back at jail, my boy. Chancing. That's why we there to talk about the minister can repair one place and so. Well, You can't go in a bank and say, I need 5,000, 5 million. It cannot work like that. We don't got the money because too much hustlers. Man go to jail for a cake of soap. And then could rip you off and then you can arrest me. Focus on that.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Just before we continue, Minister and Mayor, my nephew is waiting for me to say good night to him so he can go to sleep. So, Karen Murray, good night. Please go to bed. I love you. sorry for that. It's bedtime for him. So, thanks for that. We have a gentleman standing up there. I saw him for a little while. And then someone here had the right.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for sharing something of importance here to everyone on the island. I can only speak of who I represent. I'm a teacher for 26 years, 52 years, and the next 8 years, I will have to retire. I have seen colleagues who have given all their life with minimum amount of salary. I can only speak of myself. I educated myself, and I have a master's degree in education, double master's. But as a teacher, if I remain in the school system, high school system, I will only stay at pay scale 16. Things doesn't stay the same. That need to change. I know President Dean is retiring, and the struggles that he has to go through just to get his pension, which he will get maybe till next year. When we need that money, immediately our life has changed. So I am being honest. I would hope we go through all this struggle about who did what and who did this. It has to change from the individuals who are inside, whether you were there before or where you're here now. If you look at everybody, things that they think, it's nearly the same that they're crying for. But I can only speak on my end. I have seen people who have worked hard, that they are struggling to even get that pension that they require or need. There is no way you can survive after teaching. Maybe you are getting maybe 4,000 or 5,000 a month, and then it goes to zero. That needs to stop. Any public officer, the minute that they retire, that fund should be present.
Pension payment for public officers on the day they retire.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Did you also say you need the pay scale to go up?
That's it. Yeah. She's from San Pedro, you know.
I can't imagine pay scale 16 and 2 masters, sir. I just can't understand it. Yeah. No post. Yes. No, just for the record, for recording. Yeah, they're not about the volume, they're about the recording.
So you have to think about inclusion, because presently on this island, you have kids who have been locked up in their homes, parents who have students with disability. Nothing is done for those individuals. I hope that somewhere we could build a school for them, because I know a colleague and I asked him, what would happen to you if your child or you get sick? Then who will take care of your child? He has no answer. Why? Because there's nothing in place. But my biggest thing is not to fight against anybody, but it's just being fair. Whether we elect Senate or no elect the Senate, because either which way, whoever is in power determine what, and the Constitution will change it. I am 52 years old, and I've been hearing from a small boy running behind George Price, Cowie, Ralph Fonseca, in Ladyville, did not change. So the reality is, pay people when they earn. That's my view.
Mayor, you don't have anything? You don't have no questions? Drop nothing forward. After this lady, I see your brain, they go like you're going to 2 things to drop forward, man.
Hi, good night. My name is Karen Wade Kanul. I guess it'll be like a conversation, because the way I understand the Constitution is that it's like the sky. It blankets all of us, and it's supreme. So then that's why you need to strengthen it, because there are some holes in it, right? So then I believe Mr. Dickey said something about simplicity in words. I think all of that trickles down to Belize's main disease, that we do have a lot of laws, but a lot of laws are written too simply, and then a lot of laws are written too simply, which then creates too many loopholes. Development, growth, all of that has taken on and just ran. And then the laws are way back there trying to catch up. So the damage that is being done is not being dealt with because of all those loopholes and all that discrepancy in, who's where to do what. So going back into the constituency, the Constitution, how I understand it being a whole blanket, what I'm saying is that it needs to be decolonialized and depoliticized and de-secretized. I don't even know if those are words, but decolonialized, where if the Constitution is the supreme rule and right of every Belizean, then the Constitution needs to assure that no other entity outside of Belize has more rights than a Belizean. I will give you an example. Very simple layman's term. We are business owners, tour operators, have been for 22 years. An example of that colonialism, lack of protection that we don't have as Belizeans. We've been working all these years, we say we do all of that. We wanted to buy a catamaran boat. We applied for duty exemption. I wrote beautiful letters to everybody. I had support from BTB. They supported my letter to the application. Story short, came back, denied, you don't qualify. I'm a Belizean. Born, my husband as well, my children, because I was too proud to go to Chetumal or the United States to give birth to my children because I wanted them to be 1,000% Belizean. So then I was denied. But there is something, and I'm just using this one piece of thing. There is something that allows a foreigner to bring in a beautiful catamaran and pay something like $2,000 permit, something like that, for a 4-year allowance for them to have this boat in Belizean waters without paying import duties, GST, environmental tax. Then they can engage in business with that catamaran by simply giving it to somebody to work for them who has a permit. To a tour operator, So then I have automatically been punished for being a born Belizean. They have punished my children because I insisted that they be born Belizeans. So that's the colonialism I'm talking about. If our Constitution is the supreme power and gives me as a Belizean all the rights to my protections, to all the protections that are being listed in this little booklet and in the, I don't know how many page Constitution, there's all these holes where somebody else can come and step on my head and say, I'm more Belizean than you. Oh, I don't even have to be Belizean to be more than you. So our Constitution needs to be decolonialized. Anything that can be put, I'm not a lawyer. My daddy wanted me to be a lawyer and I said no because I could not take a guilty person out of jail. That's why I didn't want to be a lawyer. But anyways, there has to be something. Lawyers, get together, put something that will close those loopholes that will not make somebody else more Belizean than me without being a Belizean. Me and you are Belizeans, we have equal rights, but nobody should have more rights than us. That's one. Desecretize something. Desecretize this country. Why is all that corruption happening? Because there is no assurance in our Constitution that guarantees that our government will not break their promises to us by allowing them to engage in doing all those secret, all that portico, secret, what was it? Super band. They have already forgotten super band because now there's portico. That's the one in style right now. But there's too much secrecy allowed in our country, and there is no constitutional assurity that that secrecy not be allowed. I just heard, very short, the Senate sitting this morning. There is the loan contract being entertained with the Arabs. They want to lend us money, yet they want to control how we will pay them back and all those different things. But the one thing that caught me is that they're going to be allowed to, after the loan is given, that any business talked about it be held in secrecy. Immediately, that should not be constitutionally allowable. There should be no secret about our country, especially our monies that we have to pay back. How many billions is it? There's barely 500,000 people in this country. Divided. My tataranietos all, and they haven't even been born. So I'm trying to be short. Depoliticize the country, the Constitution. If we depoliticize it, we start eradicating corruption, or at least make a huge effort at it. The first problem, and all the politicians will not like it, the constituencies, grossly unfair. How is it that 1,000 vote constituency gets a seat to then decide towards the majority of who's going to become the prime minister, who has the power to appoint everybody? When then there is other constituencies, or hopefully San Pedro and Burgrisky Kikaker is going to be a constituency. Let's say they're just going to give us one vote. So how is it that just Belize district can have so many seats, so much power in deciding our country's leadership, when we have the whole rest of the country's 6 districts? But Belize City, Belize districts get the most right. Again, more right. All of that has to be evened out, population-wise. Has to be. Because we are not, the majority is not choosing the government. It is not a reflection of the majority. Not when you have, I don't know how many seats, but a little bit of votes and so many power. So then that's one thing. Then somebody, I think it was my husband, that says strike out the clause from certain laws that says at the discretion of the minister. If we already have a whole bunch of laws making decisions for certain scenarios, why then do you just crumple up the paper and throw it in the garbage and then say, okay, then you just make the decision? No matter all the laws that we already went through, you make the decision. No, we already have the mechanism. We already have the tons of pages of laws that decide, that say, okay, if you do this and if you do that, but if you do this and you do that, that's the filters that decide and give a lawful decision its strength and its power. Why trample it and then just give one person the power over all of that? You know, that's what I mean, depoliticize, and I just made a word, I guess.
I just wanted to provoke thought. The Constitution actually says that each electoral division shall have as nearly as may be an equal number of persons eligible to vote in each. So, like, I just want to know that, and that is being adjudicated in the court as we speak, and I think that may have been what triggered the redistricting exercise.
Very good.
Just so you know that it's in there, right? They think they're there.
Very
but
good.
nobody took it to court, but they did know, and it's happening. So that's what happens when the people know what's in the Constitution and push forward, right?
Because who has to take it to court? The politicians on both sides, and then the majority of them in both sides is not convenient to them. That's why it's been dragging foot.
Whenever the politicians carry it to court.
No, that's why. No, it's the people, but they're not going to do anything about it, so that's why we have to do it. Anyways, then, I'm trying to finish here. Being here in Ambergrisky, we have a large influx of American, Canadian, and other immigrants. I refuse to call them expats because I believe that is a privilege that is not afforded to the Salvadorans. You know, so everybody's an immigrant. No special regard to nobody. We see firsthand how, we know the faces, this town is very small. We see the faces. We know this person has been here only for 6 months, a year, 2 years, but then they already have more than residency. It also happens close to election time, when hanky-panky is done and people are given nationalization for those things, for voting or because they paid somebody, but we can't really say it because then we have to prove it. But then that's the other problem. Nationalizing somebody is something so sacred that the records should be public and accessible, because if it's not, then the rest of your population cannot police that it's being done in the right way. Because if we don't have that, we are diluting what it is to be Belizean. Right?
Right. I just want to give some free legal advice and tell you when you set apart, you have to say allegedly, right?
Okay, allegedly. Allegedly before and after and in the middle. Correction. One last thing, let me see, because I'm all over the place. Age limit, where it started off. Again, we're a tour operator. Before it was, we have been following Western world, what they do. Their human rights, their age and stuff like that. But what we're not seeing is that in doing those things, we don't pay close attention to the character and the needs of our country. Our children come out of high school at the age of 16, 17. Tourism is one of the major, if not the major, earner in the country, as Mr. Bradley said. I won't say more. It's most everybody here, Kikakar, Placencia now, San Ignacio, our youngsters are going into tourism in all the different facets of what tourism offers. Specifically, not every child is going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Not every child is geared to be in education for more than that. We don't have trade schools. That's a whole other subject. We should have that, and it should be put in line in the Constitution with normal education system, because it needs to cover needs for all the children, the academic children, the artistic children, and just everybody. I was deviating a bit. Example, high schooler comes out of high school, or we have a dropout. Before, it used to be that you could get a captain's license at the age of 16. In following Western trends, because you can't put kids to work or whatnot, they now can't go to work. They have to be just a little assistant and earning less, even though they were born and raised here in the island and they know how to drive a boat better than everybody at Port Authority. Right? Okay. So now, I don't know where they got the idea that now they have to be 18 to get a license, and it's just an assistant, but 21 to be the captain, the only one captain driving the boat. So what is this child supposed to do? 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. You know what happens? He gets dragged in by the bad elements and one day needs to use the services of a friend here. That's what happens. We are following Western world trends that do not apply to our country, our culture, and our people. I changed the legal age back to 18 or 17 because I do come out of high school at 17. I mean, do something, look at it. And those in the protection and in the rights to working, right? That's in the Constitution. That could be addressed. And I say, you're probably going to ask me, what do you suggest? I've said everything that I think. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you write it this way. You guys' job is that.
No, I've written down a lot of what you say. When I do that part, a lot of what you say are actual things that you've told me. When I asked for clarification on that, is because I've heard the point, but it's not stated in a way that if I wrote it down from what I understand, it would be that I am saying it and the person didn't actually say it. So when I ask for clarification, it's just so that I'm sure that
you can ask, email, or call.
The person's concern is reflected, and that they say it, that never me to interpret what they say and then write it. So that's the only reason I asked for clarification. Mayor, did you have a comment? I saw a young lady standing on the side. You good? Okay, all right. I had your seat. All right, the mayor is giving up the mic to you.
Well, good night, everybody. And my name is Ronaldo Leva, and I only got 3 issues. Well, especially here in San Pedro, it's one of the pricing issue in grocery stores, overpriced, right? Some grocery stores are really overpriced. Some people can't afford it, right? Like all Lata locals say, things go up, no pay, no go up, right? So the other thing is with the traffic officers, right? I want to make them be little more stricter in their job, because they have a lot of tourists doing, drinking and driving, a lot of local drinking and driving. Sometimes police not obeying their own laws. Sometimes they are in motorcycles without helmets. Sometimes they are speeding in town. So just, be more stricter in their job. And the other thing with social security, like I want to make them change something on social security when it comes to injury, right? Because they say that if you have an injury, you need to have at least 2 or more people that saw the injury. If they don't see 2 or more, they won't help you. So, yeah, so when it comes to injury, what happened to me, I already had an injury, and luckily I had exactly 2 that saw it. Yeah, or else I wouldn't get any help. Yeah. Just change something from the social security.
Thank you for that. So, Mayor, it sounds like you have to lobby the Chief Justice for your municipal court.
Actually, good night. And we did have a meeting with the AG about that trying to get a municipal court here on the island.
You might need a magistrate.
Right. Yeah, I also agree with the point that they were saying earlier with the free education. I think we would be the first to stand up and agree on that. And I agree with Mr. Billy on the other point that he said about the environment, the protection of the environment. It is very important because if we want to live here for longer and have our future generations enjoy our beautiful island, it needs to be protected and grown sustainably. With respect to the buildings, there's a lot of buildings that have been going up, and we all know that there's a lot of development going, especially on the northern side of the island. It is something that I have brought to the minister and to the other ministers, that there has been a norm that any building above 3 stories and above 5,000 square foot has to go directly to Central Building Authority. So it is quite unfair for the council itself, because when they see big buildings going up, they say, oh, the town council is getting a lot of money from these big buildings. And in truth, we're not getting anything. So that's something that we are working on so that we can change, because the revenue needs to stay here. And to have a better control of the height of these buildings as well. When it comes to property tax, I was a little surprised earlier when I heard somebody said that it's, well, especially since she is in the real estate business, because just today I had a meeting with somebody from real estate claiming that the property tax is too high for them. Yeah, it's undeveloped land and it's acreage. The acreage of land is
I don't mind paying that property tax. So if you want to, like, you know, we could auction it and I can buy it and then I will pay.
Yeah, that is something that we have been looking at as well, because every 5 years, they call it the quinquennial, when you do the assessments of property tax, and it was done back in 2019. So this is before we got in, but there was an assessment, but it wasn't completed. So there's some that are really high and there's some that are really low. So on the assessment that we are going to do, it's not going to be to increase taxes, but to make it a fair level field so that everybody can calculate their property taxes. So I just wanted to add that to clarify some little points. Thank you.
A suggestion is me, you make it per square foot, but there's a lot of consideration that goes into property tax valuation. Like, that's a complex piece of law. Like, I saw the police officer with his hand up.
Good evening. Harris Gabriel, police officer in San Pedro. However, I'm not speaking as a police officer. I'm talking to you guys as just a regular citizen. Because most people fail to realize that when we go home, we take off this uniform and we are husbands, we are daddies, we are uncles, and we also have rights under the Constitution. However, I do not want to give the opinion that everything is fine and dandy with our job as public officers. Because for one, the police department is under a total different law than what public officers are under. We are under Chapter 138, and if you wish to understand what the laws that governs police officers are, it's totally different than what laws are governed under public officers as they are considered to be. However, when you are going to freeze all public officers' salary, we are considered public officers then, not under Chapter 138 anymore. So we still suffer the blunt of every single public officers but not considered public officers when it is convenient. That's one. Secondly, if I am supposed to be operating a taxi cab, a regular private vehicle, a motorcycle, there is something required that I need to have, and that is a license. If an electrician needs to wire your house, that electrician also needs to be licensed. A teacher, licensed. So why is it that we want to blame politicians when they mess up our life and we give them the opportunity to do so without having a license? That is one of the things I would like to see in the Constitution. If you are going to be a minister, you must be licensed. The reason for a license now is because if you do not have a license, there is no way I can hold you accountable. If you don't have a driver's license and you are driving, you are held accountable. But if I am a minister of government and I do not have a license, how can you hold me accountable for something that you gave me the job to do? You didn't ask me for my qualifications. I painted a pretty picture, and when somebody dash water on it and it doesn't look pretty anymore, you rebel? No, man. Stop calling these people government. We are the government. We just put them there as managers to manage our government. This is why education is important, because over the years we've learned an uneducated body is very easy to govern. That's the reason why you wake up in the morning and say, prices were raised at the pumps at midnight. But if this is a democracy, that means it has to be voted on. Where was I as a voter that said that it was okay to raise prices at the pumps at midnight? But yet, we complain about it to everybody else except to hold the person accountable that we put there. So please, that's one of the main things that needs to get into the Constitution. You cannot hold a post or an office unless you are licensed to do so. Come on, man. Even me had to go on the training school and be a police. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Officer. I just kind of want to do a recap of what was going on. Anybody that hasn't spoken wanted the mic? Mr. Bradley wanted the mic. Hold on. How far, right?
Officer, you know your boss is sitting right in front there? You want him to get a license to be the assistant superintendent of police? As I put you on a list, you deserve to get on a promotion list. Listen, 1 or 2 points came up which requires that we discuss it some more. Maybe not tonight, but the first one is you can't require every minister to be qualified in his portfolio responsibility. That is not a fully thought out situation. You can't say the Minister of Health must be a qualified doctor. That's not how our government system works. You can't say the minister who is responsible for the police must have a degree in criminology, and you could go on and on. You can't say the minister who is responsible for building roads and so must be a qualified engineer. That is not the role of the minister. A minister is a leader. You just said the correct word. He's a manager. For you to manage things, you don't have to qualify in all the things. No minister has one portfolio. You have to degree in all of the portfolio then. A minister is a leader. He's a person, man or woman, who inspires thousands of people to vote for him. I have confidence that when he gets there, he is able to manage. The medical department will have all the qualified doctors. He just manages along with the senior officials in his ministry. So don't make that kind of quick judgment that, why am I an electrician and I'm a minister of health one time? You don't have to have nothing to be a minister. All you want to do is to be a leader of men and women. Inspire them to higher things for the country. That if I get there, not because I'm an official man, I can't be a minister. That's what you all are saying. So give that some thoughts, yeah? The other thing is you raise a matter that comes up with the army and with your fellow police all the time. Police officers, soldiers, and coast guards, they are not public officers for very good reasons. They are public officials. The minister is not a public officer, but he's a public official. You're all paid from our taxes, all of them. How can you be like the public officer? You join a uniform organization. You're part of an almost military operation. You are, in fact, although you're not going to license, you are licensed to carry a firearm. And you are licensed to use it in the correct circumstances. When your life in danger or somebody else's life in danger, don't go shooting little 16-year-olds in their back on the beach. So, you can't be similar to a public officer because the rules that govern public officer would be a mess if you were to come under those rules. You are part of a disciplined organization in this country, and when your boss gives you instruction, you better carry it out. You have to. That is what soldiers and coast guards and police officers do. There is instruction on such a sheet, jump in the vehicle and hurry go there and put a stop to it. You can't tell public officers that. First of all, in that one thing they call their terms of employment, that is not listed there. You are directly under the commissioner of police who give instructions and you carry it out. You better carry it out because if you don't, we're going to have worse problem in the country. Don't be a public officer, be a police officer. Public officers have the public service regulations, which is a law. Lays down everything concerning how they do their jobs. You're a custom officer, nobody can put you at immigration at the border. You are trained to do something, that is what you do. Police officers are entirely different. You want to discipline a police officer, that's an easy squeeze. You want to discipline a public officer, you better have more patience than the hospital. Yeah? The reason for that is very, very important, but in our system, nobody understands anymore. A public officer should not be employed by anybody other than the Public Services Commission. If there is a vacancy, it goes in the newspaper and the television. You marry up a slave to send you to school, you have the qualifications, you apply. You go to a first interview, which narrows down the amount of applicants, and then the best of the best then go to a second interview. When you get the job, you are not beholden to no PUP or UDP. There are no Boeing or Ashcraft. You are working for your country. Police officers don't come under those rules for very good reasons. When the police get an instruction, carry it out. During the last war, one of their great poets, speaking of being soldiers, ours is not to question why. Ours is to go and do and die. And how much they put. You can't be a soldier and be a public officer. Why I don't think the orders where I get this morning, that thing is not correct, you know. I don't think like going out there for a weekend. You can't run a country, so man. Yeah? So, two things are important. In a democracy, people vote for who they want, who they love, who they believe in, that person becomes a manager of the system. Not make you an expert. The experts they in the department. A very, very important matter. The third one, I hear a lot of good discussion on it, but it needs some more clarification, right? It is that trusted Prime Minister, he appoints everybody, even the President of the United States of America shall not appoint people to position the way a Prime Minister in our system. All the hundreds of countries which are Caribbean, Commonwealth, used to have the British system, all of them have the same system we have. What is it? Parliamentary democracy. Constitution supreme. In America, the president wants an attorney general, he could only nominate somebody who then have to go to the Senate, who have public hearings about the person. Oh, he may touch somebody, vagina is not good enough. Oh, next one. Oh, he may smoke weed. Oh, we have a different system in the country. Yeah, you can't take a mango tree and go there and look for papaya. The Prime Minister is the leader of a political party. Maybe we want to say the political parties must register like a public company. So they must put out who they give them money, how much, who then they spend money upon, and how much. It's always about the money, people. It's always about the money. Maybe the political party should be required by the Constitution to register so that there can be better control over them. But our system is, once they select a leader of the party and they go to general elections, whichever party gets more than half of 31 becomes the government. That is the system. Just like boxing, you come out to whatever monk around, whoever wins, that they can't half win. We can't, the two parties can't run the country. One of them have the role to find fault with anything wrong that the powers are doing. Later on, 6 or one, half a dozen of the next, the government become the opposition. They have the experience, they could find fault with the next party. But to try and take a system that works somewhere else will not work good, and try to bring it here and create more problems for us. We have a system, make it work. That's the trick. That's the we country, that's the we system, that's the we constitution. Make it work. Otherwise, we're not going to throw the baby and the dirty water. So I'm glad you're a senior officer. We want to back the belief, by the way. So I'm publicly calling on the minister. Minister, another 6 months, give it back with ASP co. Thanks a lot. You want to say another thing? Sorry, I forget. I left out a part. Don't come back to have the promotion to superintendent.
All right. I need to start closing out now. So I'll give one more call for anyone who's not asked any questions before. Right? And then I will hand over to the MC.
Good night. Thank you very much, guys. My name is Joel Magania. I just have an observation on, for instance, what the mayor said about the environment. I totally agree with you, but in my point of view, I think there should be something in the Constitution that would control the amount of vehicles on the island. Because if we're talking about the environment, yes, the pollution is not healthy, right, for us. There's so much, it's an exaggerating number of vehicles, which, if we mean good for the environment, the gas pollution is not good for the environment. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
And I acknowledge the gentleman in the white at the back here, and I think that has to close down. Like, and I think is there anybody else who has not commented besides this gentleman? I invite anybody else to get their questions, comments, concerns to Ms.
Christina. She's a rep on the commission. She's on island. She's accessible to you. While she's on the commission through the Women's Commission, she is a commissioner for the People's Constitution and is responsible for taking concerns. So I acknowledge this gentleman as the last speaker for the night.
Good night, and thank you. My name is Christopher Matura. Talking here on behalf of the should fall on our constitution rights. Got to do with landowners. I think there's a crisis throughout the country now. First, it used to be only San Pedro. Most of the lands in the front of the beach, on the front or the beach, access to water or anything like that. In the past, there's many, and most of the people who are here already went home, which acknowledge to this, is these property owners. And I'm glad to ask this question here tonight because we have the minister here, we have the mayor here, and also the officer in charge. Many calls have made many times about property owners trying to take people off the beach or swimming in the water. And this has been happening from north of Corozal, major in Placencia, and way major down here in San Pedro. What is the law or what is the rights of our rights? For instance, I will call, well, the question of Allium. Right now you have resorts and stuff that you cannot, from growing up here on this island, we could go swim in that area for years. And now because of these resorts and stuff, we can't even walk the beach. If not be harassed by the security guard. Here come the police. I think most even the police, they don't know what's the rights of us walking the beach or what's the rights of the beach or the water, the docks, the land itself. That's one thing I would like to have the mayor, the police, everybody get together and figure that out and have it on the news, on the radio, something. This is a major problem throughout the country. Thank you.
Minister, I wonder for you. Is that for the minister? I'm going to hand over now to our very able MC. Guys, thank you so much for your comments.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much. I'll just call Christina up quickly to just do some acknowledgements and some thank yous. I have to say that we promised the PCC that San Pedro was going to be very fruitful and very engagement as always. So please, a round of applause for yourselves coming out as community leaders and representatives of the business sector and civil society. Guys have done an excellent job. So I'll pass it on to Christina now.
Good night. I would like to thank everyone for coming. I see Miss Yolanda going. Miss Yolanda, please don't go. I have a message in regards to your comment that you made. I was asked to just inform you that San Pedro High School is waiting for a structural engineer's final report before they can make an official statement. And they will then inform the parents via a meeting. And so they are waiting for an official report before they gather the parents. No problem. I would like to thank Mayor Wally for his invaluable support in making this event possible. Minister Andre Perez for coming out and supporting this event. And of course, Chairman Chanona and the team for coming all the way from the East City, and Mr. Dickie Bradley, who did an excellent job in explaining the Constitution to us and our Vice Chair for taking the time for the question and answer, and the MC, and of course, you guys who took the time to formulate your questions. And like I promised the team, San Pedro did not disappoint. Thank you guys. Have a good night.